1 out of 5.
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Wewe nini mbaya na wewe?
Umefanya nini wewe sasa? Angalia kile umefanya.
Wewe leta pesa.
Kuna nini?
Oh, so alikuwa tu mwenda wazimu anatembea looking around for free labor.
Hapa hizo na lori. Repeat. Hapa hizo na lori. Bia wewe.
Kili, piga magoti. Panta, lori, chaki.
Ngoja exactly 5 minutes. Kama sitakuwa pale exactly 5 minutes enda. That's the maximum time they're going to go serious. Go serious.
Hello there. Good morning. Welcome to the program. We're glad that you are up and early once again to be with us on Good Morning Kenya here on KBC Channel 1. I hope you had a great night. All hail Obiri and Chebet, way away from home in Boston, winning the marathon there in America, raising the Kenyan flag so high. We praise them, and of course we congratulate even those who participated in that marathon. Once again, you have placed Kenya in the global map. All right, later on in the program we'll be talking matters, people and politics, and I'll be joined by Nimrod Mbai, the Member of Parliament of Kitui East, as well as Dr. James Nyikal of Seme constituency. Let's talk matters, politics, and matters that concern you as far as our nation is concerned. But right about now, let's get the show on the road. Doreen, good morning.
Good morning, and just as you say, you know, getting the show on the road, and even as we speak, 12 counties might just be going on strike, and this is regards to the non-payments, delayed of salaries in this particular counties. And this is just a fresh notice that was issued by the SecGen KMPDU, that is Dr. Davji. And this particular strike might just be taking place tomorrow. As they said, if this monies are not disbursed by 19th, which is tomorrow, then they might just be going on strike. And this also comes at a time where just a few days back, the COG chairperson, who also doubles up as the Kirinyaga County Governor, that is Anne Waiguru, did say that the national government owes them a total of 125 billion for the past 4 months, given the fact that the last disbursement came in December last year. So we're to see the quickness in which the national government will deal with these matters, because remember, it's been a continuous push and pull between national governments and county governments as far as health is concerned, to a point where some stakeholders are saying that maybe it's about time we revert health as a function to the national government. So we're to see how all this will pan out altogether. And even as we stick on that health note, later on we'll look at neurotic anxiety. What exactly is this? How different is it from normal anxiety? Just what temperaments are more prevalent to get this kind of anxiety? We'll look at that from 9 a.m, so stick around for that. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange Okello. Welcome to the program.
Well, good morning. You're just in time for news updates. Just a quick update is that 4 people have been confirmed dead after a grisly accident on the Eldoret-Nakuru highway there. We'll be keeping tabs on that. And yesterday's Boston Marathon, the greatest of all time, that is Eliud Kipchoge, failed to clinch the gold and finished 6th, missing out on 20 million shillings had he won that particular race. But nonetheless, Kenyans carried the day, talking about Helen Obiri as well as Evans. We have that and so much more. We welcome your feedback. You can get us on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle is at Ray Manyara. Now, without further ado, let us bring you up to speed with what has been making headlines. Good morning to you once again. Quite a chilly morning here in the Central Business District. If you're still within the comfort of your home, then do dress appropriately. Now let's bring you up to speed. We start off with a recap of what happened yesterday at the Boston Marathon, where Kenya's Evans Chebet and Kenyan Helen Obiri produced a masterclass performance to win the Boston Marathon title. This year's event attracted more than 30,000 runners representing 121 countries. The winner pocketed 20 million shillings.
One of those guys that just needs to show up in town, and I'm sure he's got to stand.
Chebet clocked 2 hours, 5 minutes and 54 seconds to win the race ahead of Tanzania's Gabriel Gay and Kenya's Benson Kipruto, who completed the podium dash.
He delivers an historic win and his second consecutive win in the Boston Marathon. Evans Chebet of Kenya takes the 127th Boston Marathon title.
World record holder and two-time Olympic champion Eliud Kipchoge finished 6th. Kipchoge was making a dream debut in Boston, aiming to become the first man to win all 6 world marathon majors, having already triumphed in Tokyo, London, Chicago and Berlin. He is also expected to enter the New York City Marathon in November.
For the last 1,500 meters, they've been averaging about 3 minutes and 24.
In the ladies category, Helen Obiri took a time of 2 hours, 21 minutes and 38 seconds to emerge victorious ahead of Ethiopian Samani Beriso and Israeli Lona Salpita, who took the second and third places respectively. This year's event attracted more than 30,000 runners representing 121 countries. The winner pocketed 20 million Kenyan shillings.
And just needing an opportunity to race, Helen Obiri is given that opportunity and takes full advantage as she will come to line and celebrate with a huge smile a Boston Marathon victory.
I can't believe it, she says.
Race, that marathon, the last 1,500 meters, especially for the women's category, was quite intense, with Helen Obiri there, trying not to be boxed in by the 2 Ethiopians who are right behind her, as well as a Kenyan turned Israeli, Salapet, who was there, who was leading the pack all the way, only to lose to our very own Helen Obiri. Congratulations, Evans and Helen, for making Kenya proud. Now we cross over to neighboring Sudan, where the Kenyan government is appealing to all Kenyans working and living in Sudan to stay indoors and are advised to contact the embassy in Khartoum through the number +24 990019 4854, as well as embassy's various social media channels. Addressing the press in Nairobi, State Department for Diaspora Affairs Principal Secretary Roslyn Njogu says the government is committed to ensure that all Kenyans are safely repatriated back home should the situation warrant it.
Close to 100 people have been confirmed dead in Sudan's capital Khartoum following clashes between Sudan's army and the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces RSF, that continued overnight into its 3rd day. The Doctors' Union in Sudan says an estimated 1,100 people have been injured as clashing sides claim control of key sites in the capital Khartoum, where residents sheltered from explosions. Kenya's State Department for Diaspora Affairs Principal Secretary Roslyn Njogu has appealed to all Kenyans in Sudan to continue staying indoors and avoid unnecessary movements as the government monitors the situation. A multi-agency technical team is developing an appropriate response, including humanitarian assistance to Kenyans in Sudan and evacuation of nationals in the troubled state.
There are about 3,000 Kenyans living and working in Sudan. And so far, there are no Kenyan casualties reported. In this regard, an evacuation plan is being activated. Note that His Excellency the President is fully engaged, and through the framework of IGAD and the AU peace and security processes is calling for peaceful resolution and cessation of hostilities. Further, we are collaborating with international friends and partners to respond to the emerging humanitarian crisis.
The international community has called for an end to the violence. The fighting is part of a vicious power struggle within the country's military leadership, which has escalated into violence between rival factions. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who is the head of the armed forces and in effect the country's president, and his deputy and the leader of the Rapid Support Forces RSF, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, have disagreed on how the country should transition to civilian rule. As fighting rages in Sudan, Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs says it's committed to ensuring all Kenyans are safely rescued and brought home should the situation warrant it.
We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening in Sudan, given that this particular development is definitely going to affect the stability within the northern region of Africa as it has, and we hope it doesn't spill over at a time when we're working to have the IGAD also now work at maintaining peace and security within its member states. Now back home, Land's Chief Administrative Secretary Kimani Ngonjiri has been disarmed after shooting and injuring one man in a land ownership dispute in Nakuru. Ngonjiri's Seska pistol has been confiscated even as he claims he shot in defense. Investigations in the incidents are underway.
Susan Marugi, who is in her 60s, now holds a title deed indicating she is the rightful owner of the land in question. It's alleged that the Chief Administrative Secretary for Lands, Kimani Ngonjiri, a former Bahati MP, arrived in Kwatom village at around 6 a.m. driving in his off-road truck and a tractor in tow ready to plow the farm that has been at the center of a legal dispute. He allegedly claimed ownership of the land and threatened to evict the lady from the land which she uses as a holding ground for her livestock. The woman's daughter Christine Jori and others joined the confrontation, and it said that the former Bahati MP picked a plank of wood intending to attack her with it. The scuffle led to an alleged shooting by Ngonjiri, which left one man injured.
Kama huu ndio mtindo haezi tutatulia, kwa sababu kama alichaguliwa juzi na sasa leo amekuja kutuvurusha, sasa itakuwaje? Sasa ningeomba serikali iingilie hii jambo.
Ngonjiri claims he shot in defense as he was allegedly attacked by 100 people.
Ndio watu wakakuja tukaja kupiga duru. Si ndio alikimbia, akaingia Ngonjiri akaingia, ndio alipiga risasi pale, akarudi akakimbia. Huyo ndio alikuwa anapimwa, huyo akatoroka.
Ngonjiri's Seska pistol has been confiscated as investigations begin.
Well, quite unfortunate there. We hope that, the residents and the owner of the land continues to maintain her land with no further disruptions. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has attributed the current cash crisis in the government to piling public debt, which he says Kenyans may not be able to run away from any soon. Now, Mudavadi was speaking in Mombasa. He revealed that the government is struggling to service some of the loans borrowed by the former administration, thus the rationalization that has affected disbursement to county governments.
That Kenyans may have to brace for tough times ahead amid the current cash crisis facing the government is not a secret. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi says the country is embroiled in massive public debts that by all means have to be settled.
The crisis that Kenya is facing is much bigger than we may imagine. The commitments that the Kenya government entered into, very, very demanding commitments to the people of Kenya. which we are not about to run away from, but which we have to deal with.
Mudavadi accused the immediate former administration, saying it entered into what he termed as unpleasant loan agreements that are now squeezing the government of the day.
On one of the programs that the previous government entered into, the demand is that every January there must be a payment of 40 billion Kenya shillings. And then 6 months later, in July, to the same commitment, there must be another payment of 40 billion shillings. These are commitments that have a primary charge on the consolidated fund. So you cannot run away from those commitments.
The cash crunch has led to a cash crisis in counties, with employees going for months without salaries.
But I can assure you, we are not happy that there is a delay. We know that it's putting a lot of pressure on the county governments, and we intend to resolve that particular issue. As a country, we have to deal with it. And we have to deal with it in a balanced way, because how much more can you tax the people of Kenya? So we have to rationalize a lot of things.
To be clear, we are 4 months behind in terms of remittances. However, at the same time, we have just been unable to pay that 1 month. So you can imagine that we are trying as our own as a county.
Last week, health practitioners from 12 counties threatened to down tools following non-payment of salaries by county governments.
Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has played down the impression made by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi that Lakeside City is too violent and unsafe for investment. Here details as prepared by Wycliffe Okech.
Kisumu is one of the urban settlements that bore the brunt of the mass action protests orchestrated by the opposition coalition Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, where some properties were destroyed and some looted. It is on this development that the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi termed the Lakeside City unsafe for investors.
I didn't say anything, but I'm just asking, and I want you to say it loudly. Which is the most risky town or city to invest in today? I am saying that, sio kwa mimi ni jirani kule, but I'm saying it and I'm asking you this question because it is important to know the consequences of instability.
However, Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has played down the sentiment, terming it economic sabotage.
Let it be known that Musalia himself is a landowner and a notable investor in the city of Kisumu. I have not, as the governor of this great county, received any complaints from Mr. Musalia Mudavadi regarding the insecurity of his investments and properties in this city.
Governor Nyong'o said it was unfortunate for a leader of Mudavadi's stature to make such remarks, urging him to instead use his office to mobilize investors into the country.
He has recklessly tried to besmirch the good name that Kisumu enjoys nationally and internationally to achieve a narrow and selfish political ambition.
We also know that there are certain properties that were destroyed, and those who are supposed to give protection, those who are mandated and given equipment to protect, were not available despite several calls by the owner of the supermarket. However, the complaint by Prime Cabinet Secretary Mudavadi has not reached us because we represent the business community, and whatever he was saying was pure politics.
The governor maintained that the region was behind opposition chief Raila Odinga's call for mass action, but assured of safety of businesses in the Lakeside City.
We shall demonstrate peacefully, fully conscious that our detractors are ready to capitalize on these demonstrations to destroy the gains we have made in terms of investments and development. We shall not allow them to succeed.
From Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okech.
Now we take you to the National Assembly, where the Energy Committee has directed the Energy Ministry to provide the agreements recently made between the Kenyan government and the United Arab Emirates on importation of fuel. The MPs also kicked out Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Churchill of the committee meeting for failing to provide crucial documents on the recent importation of fuel whose details have remained opaque. Here's Kevin Washira.
Concerns over the recent fuel importation deal that Kenya signed with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates prompted the National Assembly's Energy Committee to summon Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Churchill to provide details of the government-to-government agreement. The committee meeting was, however, adjourned prematurely after the ministry failed to furnish the MPs with required documents.
It becomes even a bigger problem that you already have them and they are not being submitted, meaning that actually just confirming that the matters are not being taken seriously.
Committee Chairperson Vincent Musyoka directing the ministry to provide the documents by Tuesday.
We will excuse you, you will go look for the documents. Let the documents be submitted because you are saying neither today or tomorrow, we'll give you tomorrow.
Under the deal, 3 oil firms from United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are supposed to nominate licensed oil companies in Kenya to import fuel for local and transit markets. The government-to-government arrangement is meant to give comfort to the oil firms in the source countries about the security of payments. MPs, however, are concerned the deal might raise the cost of fuel. Meanwhile, the Senate Energy Committee is probing how the Energy Ministry in the previous regime paid over 6 billion shillings as penalty to Lake Turkana Wind Power for delayed construction of transmission line to evacuate power from the independent power producer.
As a legislator, I would want to help you there. I want to understand what are these few things that could be done on the national grid so that we can be able to see a reduction in the cost of power.
If we identify 15 or 20 interventions in the transmission and distribution system, shunt reactors on the Mombasa-Nairobi line, upgrading of certain substations, capacitors, you will reduce system losses. The cost of power will also come down.
Gisho Kiwashira, Prime Edition.
On that note, to take a quick breather, we'll be right back. Do not go away.
After the dust settled on rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are waiting for elected leaders to deliver on their pledges.
Have you used the hustler fund?
Will your children sleep hungry when you can borrow 500 or 1,000 shillings and they have some food on the table?
So the 500 you're giving me now is my purchasing power has literally been diminished comparing to probably even January or December.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
In terms of the amount of money that is being disbursed, the minimum being 500 shillings, how do you scorecard that?
No, that I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Wewe nini mbaya na wewe? Umefanya nini wewe sasa? Angalia kile umefanya. Wewe leta pesa.
Kuna nini? So alikuwa tu mwenda wazimu anatembea looking around for free labor.
I have eyes on a lorry. Repeat. I have eyes on a lorry. Be aware.
Kili, piga magoti. Panta, lorry, chaki.
Ngoja exactly 5 minutes. Kama sitakuwa pale exactly 5 minutes enda. That's the maximum time they're going to go serious. Go serious.
To the corridors of justice, Ambalindi Court Monday allowed the police to hold controversial preacher Paul Nthenge Mackenzie for 14 more days to allow investigators complete a probe into his alleged cult-like activities believed to have led to the deaths of 14 persons through starvation. Mackenzie, who is the leader of the Good News International Church, will be held in custody alongside 6 of his followers, while another 7 who are victims of the pastor's alleged cult-like teachings will be held for 7 days for counseling.
Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Usui cancelled 10,000 police bond granted to Mackenzie in an earlier case in which the preacher was suspected to have been involved in the deaths of 2 minors through his influence. She said a request by one of the victims to be released to go and continue with his prayers and fasting in Shakahola was evident enough that such activities were still going on in the area and that releasing the suspects would lead to witness interference.
Police bond that the court had earlier issued and directed that he be released pending the investigations is hereby cancelled. Number 2, suspects 1 to 7 to remain in police custody for 14 days.
She noted that although the suspects had not been charged, the court found compelling reasons to allow the police to continue holding the suspects for more days until they complete the investigations.
We'll mention the matter on the 2nd of May 2023. Then you can do what next, whether you have charged them or not, or who you are releasing. And all of them to appear in court on that day.
Meanwhile, over 120 businessmen have filed a petition under a certificate of urgency against the government over alleged businesses being opened and operated by Chinese nationals in the country. They claim the government has been promoting, aiding and abetting the influx of Chinese nationals in the country, adding that the establishment of the economic activities has threatened the survival of their businesses and the livelihoods of over 2 million Kenyans and over 6 million of their dependents. And Ahmed Rashid, a police officer from Pangani who is accused of killing Jamal Mohammed and Mohammed Dahir on 4th Islay Street, First Avenue on 31st March 2017, has been released on a cash bail of 200,000 Kenya shillings. Rashid, who appeared before Justice Diana Mochache, denied all the charges leveled against him before taking a plea.
A physically challenged college student's efforts to pursue education hangs in the balance after she was evicted from her rented house in Thika, Kiambu County due to rent arrears. 24-year-old Christine Kavale, who has been hawking eggs to meet her basic needs, may have to discontinue her studies if she fails to find shelter. Kavale was recently featured on Kenya Broadcasting Corporation as a physically challenged person who, despite in all challenges, uses her mouth to pursue online studies.
Makongeni Phase 6 estate in Thika. Christine Kavale sits outside a house she once occupied. She says she has been evicted for failing to pay rent.
Tia nilikuwa nafanya hustle kidogo
ya kuuza mayai ndo nijikipu kidogo, kulipa rent, kununua dawa and kununua food. So ikafika point mwili ikaleta issue sana juu nilikuwa under medication hadi wa leo, so nikaacha kufanya kazi kwanza.
Although she has been receiving support for her school fees, the 24-year-old who is pursuing a course in human resources management at the Thika Technical Training Institute comes from a humble background and has been trying to beat all odds to make a brighter future.
So ilifika point vile nilifungiwa nyumba, nilienda pale kwa gate, kuna kasheda hapo ndani, nilispend 2 night hapo. So kasi na pesa, hakuna kukula dawa, hakuna kukula, hakuna kukaa kwa nyumba. So I was just requesting mtu mwenye tu yote ata come through this unisaidie juu niko tied up, siwezi fanya anything sasa, niko mwisho kabisa.
Kavale was recently featured on KBC pursuing her online studies, and due to her condition, she is forced to use her mouth to operate a laptop. For now, she hopes that well-wishers will come to her rescue and assist her achieve her dreams. Those willing to help Christine can reach her through a mobile phone number 0716 082 611.
It's such stories that we highlight that, we ask, where did humanity go? That's physically challenged students who is trying to make, or rather, make a living, studying despite all odds, as well as, doing a small business. Not because she's not trying, but she's actually doing whatever she can within her capacity to try and live a normal life. And someone decides your arrears are too much to handle, you're out in the cold. What are you doing for that girl? What are you doing for that lady or that person? The least you can do is be kind in this world. I tend to think so. So you can get in touch with us on our various social media platforms, including Twitter at KBC Channel 1, in regard to that particular story, to help Christine Kavale maintain her house as well as continue with her studies. You can get us on Twitter, I repeat, at KBC Channel 1, and give us your view and even seek more information on how you can contribute towards Christine Kavale's upkeep. Now we speak matters business, where Kenyan exporters to the common market for Eastern and South African trading bloc COMESA will be required to apply for export permits online starting next year as part of efforts to reduce non-tariff barriers and the cost of doing business. Here's Benson Rioba with the details.
Intra-trade within the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa is estimated at 19 billion shillings with a low export efficiency of 47.1%. To boost trade within the bloc, officials are seeking to transition the export licensing and trade permit to a single window system. This is expected to reduce paper transactions and time for clearing goods at border points.
We are trying to make them have a system that can talk to itself and also expedite, the clearance of goods across the region, but more so to enhance intra-regional trade.
So far, all COMESA's 21 member states have ratified the use of the single window system that will come into effect in January next year.
We have several benefits. For the customs departments, you have a chance of increasing revenue collections from that kind of system. So it's overall beneficial to all member states.
The single window system is also expected to eliminate non-tariff barriers by more than half and reduce the cost of doing business.
The electronic single window system is one of the key trade and transport facilitation instruments prioritized by most of the member states to improve the ease of doing business environment and to enhance intra-regional trade.
Kenya is calling for COMESA member states to implement the maritime single window system.
Kenya is also implementing the ongoing national initiatives to implement maritime single window system and information trade portal known as InfoTrade Kenya.
Now to not some pleasant news for those who are affiliated to the Kenya Tea Development Agency are expected to receive their refunds today from the agency. Now, the refunds are running into millions of shillings deducted from the fertilizer subsidy affected thousands of tea farmers last month. More than 6,000 tea farmers are affiliated to KTDA through the agency says not all farmers were affected by the erroneous deductions. KTDA is expected to give a status update on the matter later today.
Disquiet among tea farmers affiliated with the Kenya Tea Development Agency in the last month after KTDA deducted 500 shillings from thousands of tea farmers affiliated with the agency. KTDA was supposed to deduct 5 shillings from its 650,000 farmers to pay for the subsidized fertilizer. However, the tea agency says a technical error occurred that led to its system deducting the amount in question from farmers.
Tulikuwa tumekata shilingi 3,000 na kwa hivyo kila gunia ilikuwa imebaki na deni ya shilingi 500. Hii mwezi imeisha ya mwezi wa 3. I think there was a hitch in our system. Badala ya kukata shilingi 5 walikata yote. Kwa hivyo wakulima hawakuweza kupata pesa. Kwa hivyo kwanza tunaomba pole kwa wakulima wetu. Kwa hiyo lump sum recovery, na kwa hivyo kila mkulima atarudishiwa shilingi 16 kwa wale kwa upande wa East of Rift, na wale kwa upande ule mwingine watatumiwa shilingi 15 kwa kilo ambayo ilikuwa imekatwa.
KTDA Chair David Choho says by the close of business the agency had reimbursed 328 million shillings owed to more than 326,000 farmers.
Na kwa hivyo kwa wakulima wetu kama tumeomba radhi, tumeomba pole, wataweza kurudisha hiyo pesa. Hiyo balance nyingine itakatwa polepole shilingi 5 kwa kilo all the way mpaka iweze kumalizika.
Forensic auditors are combing through Kenya Tea Development Agency's financial systems to unravel how its new SAP accounting platform deducted the said amount.
Management agreement yenye imekuwa ikifuatiliwa ni ile ilikubaliana wakati ule. So due to reforms tukaonelea ni vizuri tuwe na some changes. Tutaserve mkulima kwa roho moja na tutaendelea kuona vile mkulima anaendelea kupata pesa kwa wingi kwa mfuko yake.
In the last 3 years, KTDA has been migrating from its legacy accounting system to the
The digital platform is fast becoming a major avenue for content creators to increase their fan base and boost their revenue. In Kenya, content creators have taken advantage of social media sites to popularize their creativity. The Kenya Film Classification Board says it's working on various digital service providers to roll out various platforms to help innovators launch more of their products.
Internet penetration in Kenya is currently at 42%, and it is projected to reach 60% within the next 3 years. From this, at least 1.2 million Kenyans have secured online work, a majority of them being the youth. The Kenya Film Classification Board now says content producers should drop archaic methods of film production and adopt content that suits digital platform needs to survive in the ever-changing industry.
These are new developments that we have put in place, and for such a show, we will be glad to see you come to us and tell us we have rated it by ourselves and we have found it as program for gender exhibition.
He says monetization of creative work on the internet is an overlooked venture, which could boost local filmmakers into creating quality output.
We appreciate that the pay TV has got some target audience, but we believe the free-to-air has even a bigger audience, and the capacity that is being developed by the content, by the pay.
Furthermore, he says they are ready to partner with content creators across the country to ensure the tapping of raw talent.
I'm sure the ecosystem of the creative industry will really trickle down.
They made the remarks during the launch of Season 3 of Hello Mr. Right, a local production by Star Times.
Well, that puts a cap on matters in the headlines. Be sure to log into our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, for further details.
Thank you so much, Regina. Regina, some people are saying that Arsenal is not going to win the league. I mean, I don't know what, and you're one of them.
Oh, more violence. Let me tell you, come Friday, Victor,
yes.
You and another kind of 1 million, Arsenal fans in this country, I think we'll need to buy you lots of ice cream, to just keep your heart rate down come Friday.
You've been fasting for this?
Well, let's wait and see. But you see, my problem is even with, maybe the math, you still are ahead on 1 point in terms of, a game in hand and such. But watu wa Manchester United tutaendelea kukaza kabisa. Arsenal, your time is coming.
Okay.
You remember the way we talked about having an elephant perching on a tree branch? It's already cracked. It's just about to fall off. I'll buy you ice cream. I just need to know what flavor you like. Blueberry, vanilla, strawberry. Which one is your favorite? And don't say you don't like ice cream. You will need it.
Let me just commit fast because Friday is coming, and even a point in the EPL matters a lot. So let's wait and see. But we are taking the league.
Ice cream on me.
Thank you so much.
Ice cream on me.
All right. Thank you so much, Regina, for that. Of course, she's been taking you through the news bulletin and what's happening across the country. All right about now, let's get into the people and politics, and let me just take you through the front page of the papers right now. Let me start with the Standard here, and before that, let me just inform you that our guest in studio still waiting for Nimbumbai Kitui East Member of Parliament, but Dr. James Nikal, MP Seme constituency, is already in studio. Dr. Good morning.
Good morning. Good.
Karibu sana to our studios.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll get to that shortly. But on the front page of the Standard newspaper, Sava politics, the big gamble for Raila. Sava politics, the big gamble for Raila. Opposition leader has staked his political career on the latest negotiations with the government, with a demand on opening the IEBC servers to authenticate who won the 2022 presidential election. Experts, however, say that even if the contents of the server show otherwise, there is no overturning the results. That is what is here. Server politics, the big gamble for Raila Odinga. That is on the front page where we have it. And now experts or even lawyers say that it's going to be a very big hard nut to crack for Raila Odinga. Chebet defends Crown Obiri toast of Boston. That happened yesterday in Boston Marathon. And of course, Chebet, that is Evans Chebet, wins second Boston Marathon. He is the first back-to-back Boston winner in 15 years. And now also Helen Obiri also won the women's race yesterday. Once again, congratulations to the duo. Mheshimiwa, this is the time that as Kenyans, we just need to be happy about this.
Yeah. Well, we've always done well in sports, and particularly in the marathons, the long distance runs.
Yes.
And I think we must congratulate and encourage our people to maintain it. I'm sure other athletes from other countries must be striving to dethrone us. That they are able to maintain and hold this position is something that is we should congratulate them for.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on, most Kenyan employees prefer working from home post-COVID. About 50% of people who the respondents say that the management and supervisory responsibilities who reported that they have no issue with managing their teams remotely, and that happened after the COVID. 4 out of 5 respondents would prefer to work from home in a study carried out by Quantum Workplace. And now study could actually force organizations to rethink how they manage their workplace post-pandemic. And I think at that particular point, Corona pandemic just gave us some sense of creativity on how we can get things moving. 2 injured in gun drama involving Land CAS Kimani Ngunjiri. 1 person was shot and another hit with a plank of wood during early morning confrontation over land. It is now reported that At the scene of the incident, the police recovered 3 spent cartridges and 1 bullet head. It's reported that the CAS arrived at the contested piece of land at around 6 a.m. where he was driving himself in an off-road 4x4 and a tractor in tow, and that is when the scuffle ensued. Police are still investigating the matter. Why opening server will not change poll outcome. New evidence from IEBC servers will not overturn Supreme Court ruling on presidential election. Election observers say that opening of the servers will enhance the electoral process in future. But Azimio insists that they want an audit of the poll servers and it has to be opened. Mheshimiwa, this changes the whole narrative, but Azimio is still hell-bent that the servers must be opened. What's your take?
You see, it depends on how you look at politics. We tend to be rather look at things very narrowly and insist that if you're asking for the server to be open, and your hope is that the only thing it will do is to will confirm your victory and therefore make you president. But that would be a good thing if it could happen. And of course, there would have to be processes that follow that. But the bigger picture is, if an election is a big event in a country, and peace after that election is important. If there is information that seems to indicate that the processes were not regular and that opening the server will show that it wasn't, in order to bring peace and to close, whichever way it closes, then it is important to serve it. That's also another important reason to do it for the future. If you look at airline crashes, every time there's an airline, however long it takes, they find out why exactly the airline crashed.
And they had to look at the black box.
Yes, the black box, all those things. And the reason is one, if there is an error and somebody has to be held accountable, that person will be held accountable. In my mind, the most important one is that they find if it is something that is likely to occur again, then actually it is used to put the procedures in future so that it is actually included in the procedure guidelines for operations of airlines. We also need, if we can get issues in the server, to know what are the things that we should take into consideration in the future. Life is continuous, and this is where even laws come from.
Yes.
You can from there derive that this happened when we use the servers, therefore in future if we have a problem, we can use it this way.
So the Azimio's idea is not to overturn the presidency?
That is one of the, if we find that there was actually flagrant, then we have to question the presidency. What the newspaper is saying, I don't know how they have concluded that it will not change anything. What they should have said, that anybody will say, if that happens, how do we correct the situation? Can you imagine that you have proper evidence that actually there were the server information, the information we have was actually wrong? I know we have gone to court.
Yes.
The court has announced itself. I know the president was actually declared.
Yes.
But we know even in court cases themselves, in court cases, in high courts, even in criminal cases, people who have been sent to jail
they can
and have
still
said
appeal.
jail, not only appeal, if new evidence comes, cases have been retried and people who have been jailed have been actually released. So we can't live in a situation where however bad something is, it is left to stay that way because it has happened.
But of course,
so there are two main things.
The courts will argue, Mheshimiwa, that courts independent, the IBC is also independent, and therefore the courts cannot get into the affairs of the IBC.
In what we know, no, it's not the courts that will get in the IBC. When the information becomes apparent, it is how you use it.
Right.
If you need a court process to reverse the situation, you will go. And the idea that the court had closed this matter, in my mind, I'm not a lawyer, but I know cases which have gone to the highest level. People have been in jail for years. New evidence has come. It has been brought to the court, and the cases have been opened. So the view is that there are two things. It can change the current situation, but also it can inform the future.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very quickly, there's that issue there of sisters fight with stepmothers over Keane's multi-billion estate. That is the late John Keane. And now there is a case of siblings rivalry. Family mourns Keane, who starved to death in special prayers saga. It said that mother says that her eldest son secretly traveled with his younger siblings to the church 2 weeks ago, and now the suspect is still in police custody as they continue with the investigation. The gentleman is called Mackenzie, and right now it's still a case under investigations. Okay, finally, Tycoon Doshi denies land fraud charges, freed on 500,000 shillings bail. Mombasa-based businessman also charged with forging land documents. He is also facing a charge of forcefully taking over the land worth millions of shillings in Nairobi. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the in the headlines as well as our discussion shortly after this break. Stay with us. Are you okay? Baby? Baby? Tuko sawa?
Lost her son?
The boy just disappeared while she was wounded, and they left her for dead.
Why don't you escape? Go away from here, away from Malena and from everything that harms you. If you don't do it now, my dear.
Oh, Fermina.
Now, I didn't even have to ask for your hand because you were practically given to me. I just need your help, Professor. I need you to help me get over what I am feeling. Those who are talking. Caicedo and Jairo. I should have known.
After the dust settled on rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are waiting for elected leaders to deliver on their pledges.
Have you used the hustler fund?
When your children sleep hungry, when you can borrow 500 or 1,000 shillings and they have some food on the table.
So the 500 you're giving me now is my purchasing power has literally been diminished comparing to probably even January or December.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
In terms of the amount of money that is being disbursed, the minimum being 500 shillings, how do you scorecard that?
No, that I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
1 out of 5?
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Kitwek FM Kegosin.
Thank you so much for staying with us and welcome back. All right, on the front page of the Star newspaper, Ruto moves to stop erratic county taxes. Ruto moves to stop erratic county taxes. Governors to seek prior Treasury and CRA, that is Commission for Revenue Allocation approval before imposing levies. That is on the front page here of the Star newspaper. Double victory for Kenya as Obiri and Chebet rule Boston. In pictures, tragedy as father of Mukumu girls students kills self. Said that the policeman shot himself on Sunday in Siala Kaduol police station in Gamesia County on Sunday. Constable Maurice Tilison Sivashi was on duty when he used his own firearm to kill himself. Grace to the family. Okay, moving on. Mheshimiwa, when you look at this case, Ruto moves to stop erratic county taxes. The governors will have to seek prior Treasury and CRA approval before they impose levies. The separation of powers, Treasury and the counties, are they in line to effect this?
We must go to the first principles in the evolution. We have two levels of governance. We have the national government and we have the county governments.
Right.
And their roles in broad principle is that the national government sets up policies, standards, and the regulation, while the county government, to a large extent, except in some areas like security, is actually the implementer of virtually all issues that are important to us. Therefore, it may be a good idea to put a policy guideline, put schedules on what can be done, and they may not be the same exactly from county to county, because even the products that may be taxed may be different from county to county.
Yeah.
So that you can have schedules on how it should be done, and when, and even the amount, in my view, cannot be fixed because the incomes in different counties are different. But it should not be in a situation where Treasury or the national government now determines how it is done, when it is done, because then the counties as entities will literally cease to exist in fundraising. Yet we would actually want them to raise funds so that they supplement the funds that they get from the
When
county.
governors will have to seek prior Treasury approval, then it means that they'll have all the operations of the counties will now depend on the mercy of the national government.
No, I don't think they should seek approval. I think, in my view, with the law, when it comes to the floor of the assembly, we will actually look at it that what is good, put a policy on taxation. If you need to guide on what should be taxed and how much, then you can put schedules.
Yes.
Yeah, you can put schedules that the counties abide by. And once that is done, the counties can go ahead and collect the taxes in line with those, so long as they are broad guidelines and schedules that they follow and policies that guide them. But to say that they are going every year to seek approval, in my mind, would not be right. Once those schedules and guidelines and policies are set, then later on they can be audited to see if counties really did it through the guideline. But to say that they are going to seek approval on their day-to-day operations or annual operations, I think would be restrictive and would not be good.
Very well. All right. Moving on very briefly, and we'll be getting into a discussion. Showdown expected in Parliament as MPs debate bipartisan talks terms. Showdown expected in Parliament as MPs debate bipartisan talks from both ends. They have got 7 members. Inclusion of Eldas lawmaker Edan Kenan of Jubilee Party by Kenya Kwanza is already contentious. And now they want Edan Kenan to be excluded from the talks. From those sides, we have, from the Kenya Kwanza side, we have Boni Halwale of Kakamega, Hilary Sigei of Bomet. We have got SC Ekenyuri, nominated senator. We have got George Murugara, Tharaka, from Tharaka, actually, Mwengi, Mutuse, Kibwezi West. We have got Lydia Haika of Taita Taveta. And finally, Edan Kenan of Eldas, whose presence in that committee is actually contentious. And from the Azimio side, we have got Otienda Molo of Rarieda. We have got David Kosing, Pokot South, Millie Odhiambo, Suba North, Edwin Sifuna, Nairobi Senator. We have got Ledamo Lekina of Narok, Amina, Mnyanzi, Malindi, and finally Enoch Wambua of Kitui. And now the issue of having Elders Member of Parliament, that is Eden Kenan, is contentious. XCS and PS linked to farm at center of high power cost. That is former PS Patrick Nyoike and former PS Joseph Njoroge and former CS Kiraitu Murungi in the center there. Mheshimiwa, bye. Karibu sana.
Thank you, sir. Morning.
Karibu. Asante.
I'm sorry for being late.
No problem. This is Nairobi and anything is expected. Karibu sana. All right. All right, we'll get into that shortly. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Nation, MP's new bid to block high county taxes. There is more or less the same on what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Ruto moves to stop erratic county taxes. And the front page of the Daily Nation, MP's new bid to block high county taxes. A proposed law before the National Assembly is seeking to control runaway county taxes by requiring the National Treasury to oversee and block exorbitant levies that undermine cross-county trade as well as national economic policies. But the bill has already drawn mixed reactions from governors and senators. Mheshimiwa, let me get your voice on this. And first of all, welcome to the program for the first time appearing on my show.
Thank you, my brother.
Karibu.
Thank you so much.
What's your take on this, MP's new bid to block high county taxes?
Yeah, no, there are some general things you need to understand in terms of that discussion. I'll give you an example so that we can understand the whole thing better. Let's say you are operating a business and you want to promote your business. You have a branded car, like let's say KBC.
Yes.
And you want to do something in the river, which is Machakos County. You want to do something in Kitengela, which is in Kajiado County, and the same time Nairobi, which is now Nairobi County, City County. So you have to pay for branding for Nairobi County, then pay for branding for Machakos County, then also pay branding fee for Kajiado County. I believe there should be one-off. If you are licensed to operate in Nairobi and you pay the branding cost in Nairobi, you should not be subjected to the same in Machakos and Kajiado. But they subject you to that, which I think is it means now if you go further to Kitui, you have to brand again. You have to pay the branding cost again for the revenue for Kitui County, which I think is one of the levies we should look into. Number two is looking at the cost of housing. You know, now we've gone the low-cost housing. And people are being levied even land which is underutilized.
Yes.
And you are paying. And the rates were added recently. You have some land, it's not in use. Basically, maybe you lack capital to develop the land. And every year in, year out, yes, it's good to pay. But the rates at which now it has been captured are higher. Nairobi is doing better. And we've seen increase in revenue in Nairobi when they lowered the cost of this levying. But other counties have not followed suit, and I think it's one of the areas where we need to look into. Because some people, yes, own land. Maybe you had some money, you bought land, you are looking at developing it at some time. But, you know, the economic times, you are not doing well within 5-6 years. Then you are forced to pay highly for idle land. I think it's something which needs to also, those are examples of some of the costs which are being under discussion. So this needs, just imagine a van which is doing sales, and it's maybe some oil or these detergents, and the van needs to go around the country dropping to clients, to retail shops. Each count you step into,
you'll have to pay.
You'll have to pay. I think that's something that needs to be controlled centrally, and it's only KRA which can do that. Yeah.
All right, I think it will also be interesting to see how this will be debated when it finally gets in motion on the floor of the House. Yes, Dr.
I actually agree with Mheshimiwa entirely that there's need for policy regulation. But what we would have to look at very carefully is we don't go to the extent that we now restrict counties. What I think can take care of what Mheshimiwa is saying is look at policy. Like say if it's advertising. Now, if you had advertised, if you have your office in Nairobi and you have paid whatever you had to pay for advertising and branding, do you have to do the same in every other place? So you may say that if you are advertising, should be one-off. Yeah, it should be one-off. But you may find there is also an issue you should look at that. If major companies are actually centered in Nairobi, then they come and pay their licenses all in Nairobi. But then they go and actually go all other counties. In that way, those counties are actually losing out. What should be done is there should be a process and guidelines on how, if you have done it in one county, then where will you be exempted and where will you have to pay, and if you pay, should it be the same rate as you are paid there? So that you can say, if you are paid this, then this percentage is what now you pay. So that we need a broad guideline and not restrictive, detailed guideline. And once that has been done, then now you leave the counties relatively free to work with it guideline. So that if, say, again, you will have to say, if now they go against it, what are the sanctions? You will have even to put in that law, what are the sanctions if they go against the guidelines that have been put in place. As to whether KRA should collect for them, and then again, if KRA is collecting, then you are going to have another process of, if you are collecting for everybody, then a distribution process will come into place.
Have a certain
but look at even now, this is the national budget. The arguments we normally have at the time of the division of revenue, when you are dividing between the national government and this. So you will start to have issues such as what are the formula you are using. So I would think there's a guideline, protect the people, as Mheshimiwa is saying, leave some freedom for the counties to collect, and let them then collect, because then we also want to put them to task. Are they able to collect? If you give it to KRA, and what happens? They say, well, KRA is not collecting. So, but we also want to say we are coming with even performance law that is being proposed. Then within the performance law, you say you should have raised this much. So give the guidelines, give the policies, protect people on repetitive taxing on the same item. And as the Mheshimiwa was saying, leave alone somebody distributing, even a bus, which is traveling from
Mombasa to Malaba.
To Malaba.
Right.
If they want to tax it at every corner, that would be bad.
Absolutely.
So there are where others will say, if you have been paid here, you don't pay at all.
All right.
Others you may say, if you have paid, this is the percentage you pay.
All right.
And this is how you do it. And then we monitor it every year and put the process.
All right.
Maybe on the same, before we get out of that.
Yes.
I think we should not allow KRA to collect. KRA should regulate.
It should be the county,
the KRA should regulate, then leave the collection to the counties. Because what happens if, because KRA, they can be reluctant to collect, then the counties will lose. So I think the collection authority should not be pulled away from the counties, but regulated.
But then, because when talking about regulations, it has to be standard, because what happens in Nairobi should not be quite different from what's happening in Machakos or even in Kajiado County. There should be some standardization kind of taxation, so that if you're traveling from county X to Y, then you are not taxed higher than county Z.
Or
some of the proposals.
If your single business permit is for Nairobi, let's now say business A has their permit, the single business permit, which is the most important document when you are running a business. If it's production, you are producing from Nairobi, but now you have to distribute to Kajiado. It should be like the county which has issued the single business permit where you are operating from should charge this. Then the count of distribution, another count that is going to have company A distributing products to them, they should charge at this percentage. Then that will help. That is not there.
Like already we are on the floor of the house.
And the levels, when you say it should be standards, when you deal with the situation, counties are so different, and the products that you will be taxing will be so different. Again, I don't think you can put a strict level. I think there, the best way would be to have a schedules and a range. Yeah, you have a schedule and a range. So you can say these areas, I mean, you will be dealing with coffee in Central and some other places. You will be dealing with, say, peanuts, mainly in Nyanza and Western, and sugar. So that if you're doing these things, you put schedules and ranges. And then you leave the county to do their things.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, on the newspapers, Talks team has 90 days to file report on IBC reforms, and of course rival coalitions now allowed to engage experts and other technical resource persons. And finally, states plan to NITA as a muse protest, and now the government is reaching out to Raila coalition's governors to stop resumption of weekly demonstrations. That and much more, you can pick your local daily for more reads. Mheshimiwa Mbai, you are afraid, if I can quote you on what you said on Sunday in Machakos, that you're afraid there must be some sort of a handshake that is brewing between Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. Is that your fear, or from the Kenya Kwanza, individually or as a coalition?
You know, let's not misconstrue my statement. Mine was a softer way of addressing the issue before the president. Because there is a hard way you can go and look like you are trying to give instructions to the president. So I looked for a way of getting around and showing support to the president, and also indicating to him what his supporters we are saying. That yes, he holds the mantle, he's our leader, we will respect whatever he enters into. But we are also entitled to our contribution, because we suffered alongside him. When the handshake between Uhuru and Raila was done, you know what William Ruto as the deputy president went through. You know what all those of us as members of parliament who are supporting William Ruto went through. We had to pave way for committee positions in parliament for Azimio members. Some of the members had to be followed at the individual levels. You were arrested. You remember, like the deputy president accounts were frozen, and some authorities went in to make it that this is revenue should be surrendered, money should be surrendered to the government as revenues, and it was basically political. You remember Ndidi Nyoro being surrounded at Citizen TV when he was on air because of some utterances he made. And it caused, though I was just trying to refresh the president's mind that there are consequences to your troops when if you can decide, yeah, for the goodwill of the country, let me go for an handshake so that there can be peace. But there will be peace when Uhuru and Raila went for handshake. We can say there was calm in the country.
The situation and scenario way back then is quite different from what we have right now.
It is not different. It is not different.
It is, because the difference between the president then and the deputy president then is completely not the same as you speak.
No, but we know Raila will need some stake when it comes for the handshake. He may not get a position like he did the other time with Uhuru. He can be like, I don't need any position. I just need access to the president, access to the state machinery. Ministers should listen to me. Policymakers in the government should listen to me. But I need some cabinet portfolios. I need some committees in parliament for my team to chair. To make, you remember, like Gladys Wanga, a member opposition chairing the finance committee, which is a preserve of the ruling party. And somebody had to pave way for Gladys Wanga, somebody who had campaigned for Jubilee. Now imagine now I'm the chair for public petitions and I'm forced to pave way for a friend like Babowino, who has been campaigning against the president and insulting the president all over, wherever he goes. And I stood with the president, I stood with William Ruto when he was being persecuted. I was persecuted alongside him. So in a way, he has to know my mind on this position.
Yes.
As one of the troops, some of the troops which stood behind him and suffered alongside him. So that as he tries to have the goodwill for the country, he also knows when Uhuru went for the goodwill for the country, Uhuru's team, headed by the deputy president, suffered a lot, and we are not ready for that.
Before I come to you, Dr. you know what you're trying to say, Mheshimiwa, is that Azimio side will have to demand for certain positions. As we speak, the government is quote-unquote fully constituted. We have got CSS in place, we have got cabinet CAS positions already, much as there's still a court process, but almost 98% of government constituted. So Azimio would not come and start looking for positions in government. Who would be fired for Azimio members to take up their positions?
You know, even by the time Uhuru went for handshake with Raila, the government had been constituted a long time ago. It was more or less the same time, like now.
Yes.
You remember after the swearing in at Uhuru Park, a lot was done in the country. These the Viva, some of these products should not be. We should have a slow for purchase of some product from some companies. There was this movement which was started by what do you call this guy who was sent back to Canada. You know, there was that resistance,
right?
The resistance movement. It took some time, and the president went ahead and formed the government, fully constituted the government, in the House and the executive.
You know, one of the things that if you want a loan, first of all, you have to prove that you don't want it. So probably Kenya Kwanza wants the handshake. Mheshimiwa, is that what you're... according to his assertion, the Kenya Kwanza doesn't need anything to do with the handshake. And sorry if we misconstrued your statement, but this is what was quoted from your statement.
No, yeah, you never misconstrued.
Thank you.
We don't want the handshake.
Okay.
And we are just appealing to the president. He should not push to a point where he agrees for an handshake.
Okay.
Because he himself suffered out of an handshake.
Do you need a handshake from Azimio?
You must look at first principle. In life, if you go for details before you settle the principle and the philosophy, whatever you are doing has no foundation. What we in Azimio want is an environment in which Kenyans will get the services that they deserve. Now, let me just give you a situation. If the ministers were doing their work well, the police is doing their work well, and the education was doing well, health was doing well, and just by constantly putting the government challenging the government that these things are done, and it is clear that because of that, things are doing well. That is the highest stake. The highest stake for an opposition is to keep the government in check, and must be seen to be doing that, and people should see the results.
You don't need positions.
Need not to have positions. But what you have is, an environment where people feel safe, that if I go to court, I'm safe. If I'm demonstrating and I've not broken any law, I'll not be beaten. The children can go to school and I can afford the fee that is in place. We can go to a hospital and get services. If an opposition can relate to the government in a way that is achieved, that is higher than getting single positions. So the basic principle is, after an election, by whatever means you find yourself in position of power, your first duty is to actually make sure that the country is working. Now, if in whatever relationship you have with the opposition makes that work and people get the service, what is politics all about? Now, so what we have done, we have actually got a propaganda word, handshake. so that when you put the handshake, you are now just talking about one incidence of what happened and the bad things that occur. But you are now killing the principle that there should be need for tolerance, even without a handshake. I don't think what we are looking for. I know we are not looking that at the end of this, the following are ministers in the cabinet, thanks to whatever agreement we have reached.
Right.
The following committees now will, I myself am not thinking I'll get in any committee or I'll be chair of the health committee. But what may happen, and we should never be afraid of that, if the relationship is good, what may happen, you will find that there is a good understanding, and when people sit, then they'll elect. Then they elect the most competent.
So in this situation,
so we are
handshake from Azimio means what?
As for Azimio, what it means is good governance.
Good governance.
Good governance in what it means, tolerance of different opinions. I'll give you one example, and my colleague is here. Parliament itself has lost its debating capacity because I didn't know, and now I know, that a supermajority can be dangerous for a country because things may be decided elsewhere. You come to Parliament, and because you are in minority and there's a supermajority, a thing is put, it's not discussed, it is put to the question, and you win. Now that should not happen. You should go in Parliament, for example, by the rule, the majority will have their way, but the minority must have their say.
Which says that Azimio doesn't need handshake.
Positions.
It's about governance.
No, again, let's leave the word handshake.
Okay.
Is there need for tolerance after elections? Whoever wins, and all views are taken into consideration, and all parts of the region are served. My friend, look at the appointments that are going on. I mean, if we maybe we'll one day do it, and just look at the appointments that are going on. When you have won an election, even at a constituency level, you immediately become responsible for everybody, including the people who did not vote for you. So that is what we want.
Doctor, from what Mheshimiwa is saying, that Azimio probably wanted some positions. And if I correctly get what the Deputy President said, that Raila Odinga wanted some position from the Cabinet Secretary prior to the handshake, or to call off the maandamano. Would you deny or confirm?
Me, I'm a person of scientific and practical background.
All right.
I do not deny or confirm things if I do not have information. I do not have information that the two talked and the one demanded things that they did not get. I don't know that.
Is that the situation from Azimio? Do you have any info?
No, there are things we need to look into. First, when we talk of the relationship between the government and the opposition, I don't see where the problem is. Because we are in the House, we have the majority leader, we have the minority leader.
That's good to hear.
These are constitutional offices which are made to provide checks and balances in Parliament. The judiciary is independent. There's no way the president can interfere on the rulings by individual magistrate, judges, and justices. So the judiciary is so independent, and the president has been very clear. So legally, as per the constitution, I don't see a problem, because we have a body which is mandated to have checks and balances in the assembly, that is in the legislature, which is led by one the Azimio leader in Opiyo Wandayi.
Right.
That is constitutional. He has an office, he's protected by the government, he does his work very well. So what else is the Azimio side looking for more than Opiyo Wandayi and his team? Number two...
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. I'll come back to you and finish.
And we'll come back to that.
Exactly. Allow me to take a break. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're still having that discussion. But most importantly, the legislators, the doctor strike is looming. Doctor, you tell us more on that. You've been there before. And what does that really portend to the nation? Shortly after this.
lost her son?
The boy just disappeared while she was wounded, and they left her for dead.
Why don't you escape? Go away from here. Away from Malena and from everything that harms you. If you don't do it now, my dear.
Oh, Fermina.
Now, I didn't even have to ask for your hand because you were practically given to me.
I just need your help, Professor. I need you to help me get over what I am feeling.
Those who are talking, Caicedo and Jairo. I should have known.
Wewe nini mbaya na wewe? Umefanya nini wewe sasa? Angalia kile umefanya. Wewe leta pesa.
Kuna nini? Oh, so alikuwa tu mwenda wazimu anatembea looking around for free labor.
Hapa hizo na lori. Repeat. Hapa hizo na lori. Ndio.
Kini piga magoti. Panta. Lori. Chake.
Ngoja exactly 5 minutes. Kama sitakuwa pale exactly 5 minutes enda. That's the maximum time they're going to go. Serious. Go serious.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Mheshimiwa Mbai, you were on the floor.
Yes, I was saying...
Correctly in order.
We have a constitution which provides functions for each arm of government. And I believe all the arms of government are working as per the constitution. When the elections were done, it's only the executive and the legislature which were affected. The executive, the president changed, but the bureaucracy never changed. We remained with police stations, we remained with chiefs, stant chiefs, DCs, and they are all over the country. The state is running very well. Kenya is a country. Everywhere you go, there is security provided. Number two, you look at devolution. Each county has its own governor. They are doing their thing well. Each constituency has its own member of parliament. He has CDF, he has the powers to come to parliament and legislate and also defend their people. At the ward level, we have MCS making laws and regulations for the counties.
Yes.
So when you look at the structure of the governments, the three arms of the government plus the devolved governments, that is working very well. So the Kenya as a state is working very well. Where we have a challenge is the governance issue, which now looking at history, and that's where the word of handshake is coming in. It has evolved to have many different names. We started with the accord when Tinga was swallowed by the cockerel, and Raila became the Secretary General for KANU, and he got into government from opposition after maandamano. Then we came to the Kibaki time. There was maandamano after elections. All these, Kofi Annan came. We went for the Nunus Mukate government. Then now Uhuru came. There was the illegal swearing in. There was this maandamano, the Jeshi la Baba, and all those things. Then handshake came in. It is the same thing. So, you know, history can never lie. It is the same thing which we are looking at. Yes, the judiciary is there, cases are going on, magistrates are working, the executive is there, chiefs are working, police stations are working, the military is defending our boundaries, everything is working well. Parliament is working very well. We have the leader of majority, we have the leader of minority. Each constituency is represented in the House. But where do we have issue? The issue is just what has been happening in history. Somebody wants Tinga to be swallowed by the cockerel so that we can have a concoction of government made up of opposition and the party which won, or a nusmukate kind of thing where we have a prime minister and a president and ministers from the prime minister's side and ministers from the president's side, or we have an handshake kind of thing where we have committees changing leadership, a few members from the opposition being appointed to the cabinet with the influence of the opposition, but not the president. So it's the same precedents which have been set. Now, the factors which come to play until that point, we have the nusmukate, or we have the accord, or we have the handshake. Now those principles are in play. And when you look at the issues which Azimio wants to be discussed, is first, we won and our election was stolen. The servers have to be opened. That is what was said during the handshake time. That is what was said during the nusmukate time. And what does the president have to do with opening of the server? He was just a candidate like any other candidate. We are looking at food crisis, the cost of living. In which government did the cost of living go high? It is the handshake government. Unga was going at 230 before we went to election in June, July last year. Today, Uga is at around 180.
Remember some of the CSs, even some of the members of parliament were sitting some of the powerful committees in parliament way back then in the last regime.
You look at what Mheshimiwa has said, and I hold a lot of respect to him for several reasons. He's a ranking member in parliament, and he also, at personal capacity, helped me in a very critical time in my life. But there's something he has said that the parliament is as a super majority. It is compromised. There was no worse time when parliament had a super majority and compromised like the handshake government, where we had Jubilee MPs and ODM MPs coming together to be government. The other side which remained had that. Actually, during the handshake time, the handshake government would change the law on the floor of the house because they had a super majority. Now, the government side has no super majority. Where we can say there is some super majority which can change the law is in the Senate. But in Parliament, and he's a ranking member, he knows during the handshake time, the government side, the handshake government, had a super majority, that the majority which is being enjoyed by Kenya Kwanza. So that was a worse situation than today. So the things which are being pushed for, some are beyond the executive's power. Some, like which the president singled out, the constitution of the IEBC. And you remember in Bomas, when BBI was brought, William Ruto was there and he spoke about this issue of formation of IEBC.
Let me just get Mheshimiwa's voice on this, because Mheshimiwa, you're a ranking member, the way he says it. During the last regime, supermajority, something you've talked about. But as it is right now, the Kenya Kwanza administration is hell-bent and completely stuck on making sure that there are two separations of power. There must be an opposition and the ruling government, and that is what the president has been talking about. When the Kenya Kwanza proposed the office of the official opposition, they said they don't want that opposition, that office.
You know, let's start with this myth of handshake government. If you now go into the structures, he put it very well, that you look at the structures of government, of governance. The executive is one, the judiciary is one, and the legislature is one. When you go into what is the period we are referring to as the handshake, which people were in the cabinet that you could actually attribute to the opposition?
Yes.
The only, everywhere I go, the only thing that is mentioned is the position of Gladys Wanga in the finance committee. But I don't remember any other that you could say in this, the following ministries are actually from the opposition. There's nothing, even in committees, you couldn't go apart from that one and say the following committees are led by opposition, except the ones that are actually by law or by constitution, the audit committees. Now, so that handshake thing if we were to say William Ruto himself was actually number 2 in structures. If you are going by the structures, my colleague is saying the police, the bureaucracy is there, the police is there, the legislature, the judiciary is there, all the systems are working. That time, the system, the bureaucracy as we know it, number 2 was William Ruto himself. So then you can't run away. If you were to put it on paper, what positions was being held. It's different from the coalition government, which was actually structured in a legal way, and you could attribute some ministries. So a relationship, I don't think, can now take away people who are holding responsible position at that time. Now, again, we say the government, the country is running very well. The whole purpose of governance, of elections, of running a country is so that people get services. There's no other. So now, can we say Kenyans are more comfortable now than they were 1 year ago? Can we say, look at the food prices that we are shouting about? Look at education. I'm actually terribly worried about education. The way we have implemented the CBC, the competent-based curriculum, and what it has done to parents and in the management of schools. I know it is being worked on, but there's definitely a problem. We are talking of security. The security apparatus are there. The police are there. The army is there. All the others are there. But can we say in this country our internal security is good, it's better than before? It isn't. Look at health. Look at, now we have just been talking. So the big issue, we cannot be content that structures are in place if the structures are not delivering. My understanding of what we are talking about in Azmio is we want these structures to work, not just be there. And then there's one element.
Dr. we are actually 15 minutes
my
past
colleague was saying these
Yes.
structures are there. But let's be honest. Let's look at the appointments. Human beings have a sense of belonging. Even if people are not in active politics, their appointment in positions gives peace to the places they come from. But look at the appointments. Then the expenditure, they say there was a wastage and money was maybe squandered at that time. But look at now, we are even putting structured wastage. We wanted CASs. I think they went to court, and I think 23 were approved. How many have we appointed? 50. So it is not just structures. It is what do they deliver?
We actually ate into the time, 17 minutes.
I have something to say before we talk to the doctor. Just in less than a minute.
Take us off here.
Yes, there is a perception in this country because of the ethnic kingdom kind of thing. Let's take in my community. We have Kambas appointed in the executive. We have 3 ministers, CSs, Mutua, Penina, and Monica Juma. But there is that belief until the ethnic leader is in government, Kambas are not in government. Let's go to a community like my friends here. Awalo is in the government. We have the CS, the most superior and powerful PS. Even in parliament, the security committee is committee number 1 is from the Luo Nyanza. But Awalo is like a nobody. If Awalo gets into government and Omon gets into the government and it is not Baba or Raila, the Luos are not in government. That is a syndrome which is killing us. Everybody is equal to the other. And the president has appointed his government across the country. The only mistake he has made, he has not appointed the political ethnic kings.
All right. Gentlemen, we've done more than we were supposed to be given, 18 minutes past the hour. Allow me to stop at that particular point. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to take a break and we cross over to Zinga. Of course, now we have got Member of Parliament, that is John Mutunga, Member of Parliament of Tigania West, as well as Kipruto Arap Kira, who is a former member of who is actually former Minister of Agriculture, and we'll be crossing to Zinga. They'll be talking about Kilimo Endelevu with Dora Manya shortly after this. But Mheshimiwa Dr. James Nikal, thank you so much. That is a Member of Parliament, Seme constituency, and Nimrod Mbai from Kitui East constituency. Short and sweet. That's how we do it. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a break. Zinga up next. Good morning.
Yes, yes. What did that?
Naam, mtazamaji wa KBC Channel 1 na vile vile msikilizaji wa KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya, tunakujia moja kwa moja kutoka studio zetu, na kama ilivyo ada kila siku ya Jumanne tunakuwa tunaangazia masuala ambayo yana umuhimu. Leo tunaangazia mambo tofauti kidogo, manake chakula ni muhimu. Na hivyo hii leo basi nakukaribisha katika gumzo pevu kwa dakika zilizosalia tukaweza kuzungumzia masuala ya kilimo endelevu. Na studioni pia nina mgeni ama wageni wengine ambao unataraji nitakuwa na kujuza kwao katika muda usiokuwa mrefu. Mimi naitwa Dora Manya. Fuatana nasi katika mitandao yetu ya kijamii @Radio Taifa FM, @Dora Manya, @KBC Channel 1, #Zinga, #Good Morning Kenya. Naam, kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa taifa letu, huku wengi wakitegemea sekta hii kujiajiri na hata kupata hela ya ziada katika kuendeleza maisha yao. Na kwenye maazimio ya Maputo, yani ukipenda Maputo Protocol, mataifa ya Afrika yanatakiwa yatenge 10% ya mapato ya nchi yao kwa sekta ya kilimo. Lakini hata hivyo, hii imekuwa ndoto tu, huku Wizara ya Kilimo, Uvuvi na Mifugo ikitengewa kiasi kidogo cha mapato ya taifa. Na kama kuongeza chumvi kwenye kidonda, upungufu wa mvua kwa muda wa miaka mingi umesambaratisha shughuli za kilimo hapa nchini. Kadhalika, mabadiliko ya hali ya anga yamechangia katika kusambaratisha shughuli za kilimo, hivi kwamba katika maeneo fulani humu nchini mvua imeanza kupungua baada ya wakulima kupanda mimea yao msimu huu. Kutokana na ukame wa muda mrefu, serikali imeagiza tani 48,000 za mahindi kutoka ng'ambo, tukisubiri mavuno yetu. Na pia serikali imetoa mbolea ya ruzuku kwa wakulima ili wapande mimea kwa wakati, hasa msimu huu wa mvua. Na hivyo basi studioni hii leo tuna wageni wetu. Kwanza tunataraji mgeni kutoka eneo bunge la Tigania West, Mheshimiwa John Mtunga, ambaye bado hajawasili. Yeye pia ni mwenyekiti wa kamati ya kilimo pale bungeni, lakini ambaye tayari ameshafika na yuko nasi studioni ni waziri wa zamani wa kilimo, Mheshimiwa Kipruto Arap Kirwa, kutusaidia kuelewa mambo haya ya kilimo endelevu hapa nchini Kenya. Fuatana nasi katika mjadala unaofuata. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa katika studio zetu.
Shukran.
Wakati wote ambapo tunazungumzia kilimo na jina la Kipruto Arap Kirwa linatajwa, tunahisi kwamba tuko salama.
Ya, tulijaribu wakati wetu na tunashukuru marehemu Mwai Kibaki. Alitusaidia kabisa kutupa nafasi ya kuchukua maamuzi ambayo tuliona inaweza kutuendeleza katika sekta ya kilimo. Na wakati wote ule ukifanya makosa alikuwa anakuita, anakuuliza maswali ambayo itakusaidia kuchangia katika hali ya kusuluhisha mambo. Yeye hakuwa wala ambao tunaita micromanagers. Alikuwa ni mtu ambaye anajua ukishampa mtu kazi, mpe nafasi achukue maamuzi, na pia baada ya kuchukua maamuzi apewe nafasi kutekeleza yale ambao wamepanga kama Wizara ya Kilimo ama wizara yoyote ile. Yeah.
Okay, tutakuja hapo kwa kilimo baadaye, lakini kama wengi wanavyotaraji, kwanza masuala ya kisiasa hapa nchini lazima tuyagusie. Kwa sasa tunasubiria sana kuona ile tunasema bipartisan team ambayo rais alikuwa amependekeza kwamba masuala haya ya azimio, matakwa yao yakaweza kuangaziwa katika bunge la kitaifa. Tayari tunaona wana azimio, wana timu yao ya watu 7, vile vile upande wa serikali wamekupenda Kenya Kwanza. Lakini kidogo hapa, sijui kwa tathmini yako kama unaona haya majadiliano ambayo tunataraji yataweza kuzaa matunda, ikizingatiwa kwamba tayari wanaazimia wameanza matakwa mapya kwamba, na wamesisitiza tunataka mazungumzo haya yafanyike nje ya bunge. Na jambo la pili pia, sasa wanasema kwamba maandamano yataendelea sambamba na mazungumzo. Tutapata mwafaka?
Tutapata nafasi nzuri. Unajua Wakenya wakati mwingine ukifikiri kwamba nchi inaenda kusambaratika, Mwenyezi Mungu huingilia na kurudisha sisi katika hali ambayo tunajua tutaendelea kama Wakenya. Hakuna mtu yeyote yule ambaye ana title deed ya Kenya, awe katika serikali au katika upinzani. Jambo ambalo tumezungumzia si jambo kipya. Wakati tulisema tunaenda kuzungumza tarehe 2, wakati rais alizungumza na baadaye Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga akatoa majibu kwamba yeye yuko tayari kwa mazungumzo, hatujabadilisha nia wala dhamira. Jambo ambalo tunaona tu ni kwamba tunafanya ile ambayo tunaita zamani nikiwa kijana mdogo, jioni ikifika tulikuwa kuna jambo tunaita kunet. Unatupa kijiti kwa mtu na unasema kitu, anakukimbiza, akikupata anakushika, alafu anarudi mpaka jioni, ndio sasa mambo yaishe hivyo. Haya mambo ambayo yanaendelea kati ya serikali na upinzani ni kama hiyo, kwamba serikali wakati mwingine wanasema tuwape nafasi wafanya kazi, na sisi hatuna shida. Hatujafungia ofisi, hatujafungia maamuzi ambayo wanachukua katika cabinet ama katika sehemu yote ile. Lakini wao wakifika wakati huo wanaanza matamshi mabaya kutokana sisi kwamba tunapeba sufuria kwa kichwa. Wanaenda kanisa, badala ya kuzungumzia Mwenyezi Mungu ama Yesu Kristo, wanazungumzia Raila kuliko Yesu Kristo. Hayo mambo tungependa tuwe na ukakamavu wa siasa, kwamba serikali ikisema hili wafanye hivyo. Wakienda kanisani waombe Mwenyezi Mungu na waeleze wa Kenya wana mpango gani kuhusu wao. Wakitoka kanisani waendelee tu na mazungumzo kama hayo. Sisi hatungesema tunarudi maandamano. Kwa hiyo hatutaki wao kujifanya kwamba hawako katika mambo ya siasa, lakini kila mahali walipoenda Machakos, walipoenda Nandi, walipoenda upande wa Western kwa makanisa 40, Deputy President alikuwa anazungumzia Raila mara nyingi mpaka ukashindwa Raila sasa ameingia kanisa kwa njia gani. Hayo ndio mambo ambayo tunasema tukitaka kuzungumza kuhusu hii nchi, kila mmoja wetu lazima achangie. Jambo la pili, bunge wao ndio tumewapa nafasi katika Article 1 of the Constitution, ambapo inasema sisi kama raia tunaweza kuchukua maamuzi kwa hii katiba ama kupitia wale ambao tumewachagua. Ukisoma hiyo na pia Article 94 inamaanisha wabunge ndio wao ndio tunawategemea kuchukua maamuzi. Lakini wabunge hawezi kuzungumza mambo ya nchi bila kuhusisha sisi. Mimi kama raia nina jukumu katika hiyo katiba kwamba hili ndilo jambo inaweza kusaidia Kenya. Wale watu wa civil society, wa Kristo, Waislamu, Wahindu na watu wote, jambo hii inasema inatakiwa kwa mdahalo wa kitaifa, national conversation, ili kila mmoja wetu afikiriwe. Mwishowe yale ambayo tunaweza kurekebisha katika bunge tunarekebisha, yale ambayo serikali inaweza kutekeleza kupitia administration wafanye hiyo, yale ambayo sisi kama wananchi tunaweza kuchukua nafasi hiyo kusema hiyo naam, watu wetu wamezungumza, wabunge wamepitisha sheria, rais amekubali, upinzani pia wamekubali. Hiyo ndio mwongozo ambao ningependa kueleza Wakenya wote popote walipo.
Lakini swali ni kwamba tayari mnataka ndio kupatikane suluhu, lakini matako mengine yamepeana kwamba tutaendelea na maandamano, ama wanazimia wamepeana kwamba ataendelea na maandamano na pia mazungumzo yaendelee. Itawezekana kwamba mwafaka upatikane huku kwa maandamano, huku pia kuna mazungumzo? Basi kuna haja ya mazungumzo, basi wapo watu wanarudi katika maandamano.
Maandamano ni mazungumzo. Unajua katika lugha ya Kiingereza tukizungumza kuhusu dialogue inaweza kuendelea hata kama hujasema kitu. Mtu anaweza finya macho, kuna mazungumzo fulani anakueleza. Kwa maana wale ambao wamesomea taaluma ya communication wanasema sehemu asilimia karibu 70 ya mazungumzo inapitia body language. Na pili, tunaingia kwa mass action ama kwa barazas, kwa maana serikali inaendelea kuzungumza. Sasa ukienda kutukana sisi na tunyamaze, watu watafikiri labda sisi tumefanya makosa. So tunawajibu, wakienda kutukana sisi tunawarudishia kwa kiwango ambao tunaona yafaa. Lakini kama watazungumza kuhusu sera ya nchi hii, wamefika wapi, wana shida gani na wanataka usaidizi gani, sisi tutawapa suluhisho ambayo kadri na uwezo wetu.
Huja nijibu nilivyotaka, lakini labda tarejea hapo baadaye, manake swali kuu ningetaka kujua kwa nini wanaazimiwa sipeane ile tunaita dialogue nafasi kabla ya kurejelea tena katika maandamano yao.
Lakini Dora, unajua hata katika vita kuna wakati tunasema tunasimamisha vita. Lakini wakati huo haimaanishi kwamba wewe unaenda unatupilia mbali silaha yako. Silaha lazima uwe naye, ndio hata yule jamaa ambaye anajua mko naye kwa vita akubali kwamba mazungumzo haya yatamsaidia. Lakini tukianza kunyamaza, wataanza kutugandamiza mpaka wananchi watafikiri sisi watu wa upinzani tuna shida fulani. Sisi hatuna shida. Mimi mwenyewe sina shida na serikali iliyopo wakati huu, lakini wasiwe na tabia mbaya. Wakiendelea na tabia mbaya, lazima sisi tutazungumza.
Okay. Tunatafuta kikao kingine cha kuendeleza hayo, lakini hebu turejee katika masuala ya kilimo. Mvua imeanza kunyesha baada ya kuwa na ukame ambao umekisiwa kwa mbaya zaidi kwa nafikiri miongo minne, na sasa mvua ipo na pia tunaona wakulima wameingia katika mashamba katika shughuli nzima ya kupanda. Kwa tathmini yako, ulikuwa waziri wa masuala ya kilimo. Katika masuala ya kilimo endelevu, kama taifa tuko wapi? Kenya na nafasi na uwezo wa kuzalisha chakula cha kutosha kulisha watu wake?
Jambo la kwanza ningependa kutoa shukrani na shukrani kwa Mwenyezi Mungu kwa kutupa mvua. Ilikuwa imekuwa tishio kubwa katika nchi hii, kwa maana ukitembea katika kaunti zaidi ya 13, ng'ombe hasa walikufa wengi zaidi ya 2,000,000. Hii inamaanisha rasilimali ya nchi hii ilisambaratika. Jambo la pili, pia natoa shukrani kwa wakulima, wamerudi mashambani, wengi wamepanda, hasa katika sehemu ninakotoka, kaunti ya Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Nandi na Bungoma na sehemu kubwa ya Western wameanza kupanda. Jambo la tatu, pia ningependa kutoa shukrani kwa serikali. Ngawaji ile mbolea ambao wanasema rusuku haijawafikia wakulima wote. Kuna wale wanasema walisajili wakulima 500,000, lakini si wote ambao wamepata mbolea kwa wakati mzuri, na pia wangesoma mahitaji ya wakulima. Ile mbolea nyingine ambao walileta, wakulima wengi hawajazoea. Si kwamba labda inaweza kuwa mbaya, lakini kuna kitu ambayo inaitwa uzoefu, ambapo wakati mmoja tukiwa watoto wadogo, dawa ya meno tulikuwa tunaita Colgate. Hii ingine ambayo sasa nyinyi mnajua, tulijua tu baadaye kwamba dawa ya meno si Colgate peke yake, kuna ingine na ingine na ingine. Kwa hiyo wakulima wengi hasa katika kaunti ya Trans Nzoia wamesoea DAP, wamesoea CAN kwa mambo ya top dressing, na pia wamesoea urea. Kwa hiyo ukileta mbolea sintofahamu. Hiyo ndio shida ambayo tumepata. Lakini kwa wastani nafikiri tunafanya vizuri, na tunatarajia hii mvua ikiendelea tunaweza kuwa na mazao mema mwisho wa mwaka huu.
Unazungumzia mazao mema mwisho wa mwaka huu, lakini kabla tufikie yale mazao mema, kwa miaka mingi Kenya imekuwa ni nchi ambayo labda kidogo kichakula tunaweza kujitegemea. Tunaweza tukalima tukawa na chakula cha kutosha, lakini sijui tatizo lilianzia wapi kafika kwamba sasa tunakuwa ndio njaa ipo, chakula hakitoshi, lazima tunatafuta misaada kule nje. Tatizo lilianzia wapi? Umaiko waziri wa masuala haya ya kilimo, labda wakati wako tofauti na sasa.
Jambo la kwanza, itakuwa vyema tueleze wa Kenya wakati huu mahindi ambayo Wakenya wanakula ni zaidi ya magunia 150,000. Kwa wastani kila Mkenya anakula kilo 100 ya mahindi, ama kupitia kwa kidheri, chakula kama ugali na hata uji, yote ni zaidi ya magunia 150,000. Lakini ile tunasalisha wakati huu ni kama 40,000,000. Kwa hiyo ile sehemu inatoka ile wanaita cross border business kwa kati yetu na Tanzania, kati yetu na Uganda, na pia kati yetu na Southern Ethiopia. Hiyo ndio na wakati mwingi tukikosa hiyo ndio tunaagiza kutoka nje. Na pili, Horn of Africa ni sehemu ambayo ina mahindi ya kutosha, kuanzia Ethiopia mpaka Malawi, Zambia, Tanzania, Uganda, East Africa na hizo nchi ambayo nimesitaja. Kwa hiyo kila mwaka kuna shida ambapo mvua ikikosekana Tanzania itatudhuru, kwa maana ile cross border business haitapatikana. Kwa hiyo inamaanisha tutakuwa na shida mwaka huu. Pili, kuna jambo ambayo serikali iliweka tangu tupate uhuru, kwamba tuna shirika la nafaka, National Cereals and Produce Board. Kazi yake kubwa ni kufanya ile inaitwa price stabilization. Kwa wakati tuna mahindi kingi wananunua kutoka kwa soko, wakati tuna shida labda inaweza kuwa na ukosefu na bei iende juu kwa wale ambao wanakula mahindi na hawasalishi, wanaweka katika soko. Lakini kwa miaka karibu sasa 10 serikali ya Ruto na hata hii serikali ya Ruto na Kashagwa hawajafikiria hilo jambo na kutilia maanani. Ninatarajia wao wenyewe watachukua jukumu ya kuhakikisha kwamba wananunua mahindi kwa wakulima wakati wanavuna, ili mahindi isipotee, kwa maana katika nchi hii kuna kitu inaitwa post harvest losses. Baada ya kuvuna mahindi, ukiweka kwa gala yako, hata kwangu mimi mwenyewe nina gala ya zaidi ya magunia 400,000, lakini ukiacha katika hilo gala kwa miezi 6 utakuwa umepoteza 40%. Lakini ikiweka kwa shirika la nafaka, kwa maana una njia nzuri ya kuhifadhi, wanaweza kuhifadhi mpaka zaidi ya miaka 3, miaka 4. Hii ndio kitu ambayo inasaidia, lakini tangu 2013 sijaona jambo kama hilo. Nilisoma mwishowe kuhusu mahindi wakati palikuwa na shida ya watu kuuza mahindi kuolela kutoka cereals. Wakati nilitoka katika wizara, tulikuwa tuna mahindi magunia 8 ya kusaidia kufanya hiyo stabilization. Mwenzangu William Ruto alipoingia akauza mahindi kiolela, ndio akapata shida, akapigwa transfer kutoka wizara ya kilimo mpaka wizara ya higher education. Hiyo ndio yale nilisikia kuhusu hilo jambo. Baadaye National Cereals and Produce Board wananua mahindi kidogo. Ukiniuliza saa hizi kama wana magunia 1,000,000 watakuwa wamejaribu sana.
Lakini ukiangalia mkulima pia, siku zote wakulima wamekuwa kilalama kuhusu bei. Ndo wakati serikali ilikuwa inatangaza kabla kuagiza mahindi, wakulima watoe mahindi yao ili kwamba serikali kaweze kununua, tusiwe na upungufu wa chakula hapa nchini. Imekuwa kwamba wakulima kidogo wanakuwa na tatizo ya kutoa mahindi yao kwa kile ambacho wanasema bei ambayo ni mbovu. Sijui utasemaje kuhusu hilo?
Bei huwa mbovu kwa maana serikali haijaingilia. Serikali inatakiwa kuingilia. Kuna wakati wa mkoloni na hata wakati wa Mzee Kenyatta palikuwa na kitu inaitwa GMR, Guaranteed Minimum Returns, ambapo wewe kama mkulima wakati unaenda kwa shamba unajua mwaka huu mwishowe bei ya gunia moja ya mahindi kilo 90 haitakuwa chini ya kiwango fulani. Lakini baadaye hilo jambo haikutekelezwa vilivyo. Lakini ukinunua mahindi wakati mkulima anawasilisha katika soko, itasaidia kuleta bei juu. Lakini kama mkulima nina mahindi, wewe una mahindi, kila mmoja wetu ana mahindi, wanunuzi watakuwa wachache, wale ambao wanaweza kuchukua mahindi kutoka katika soko, na hiyo inamaanisha bei itarudi chini. Juzi nikiwa hapa, nina shamba kidogo hapa Nakuru, niliuza mahindi, nilikuwa na magunia 2,000, nikauza shilingi 2,350. Saa hii gunia ya mahindi ni 5,000. Lakini kama ningepewa nafasi labda inunuliwe kwa 3,500, ningerudi kwa shamba na nguvu, na pia ningekuwa na mapato fulani na ingenitia shime ili niendelee kuchangia kusalishaji wa mahindi. Yeah.
Na tusalie pale katika uzalishaji wa mahindi, na kwa sasa tunapozungumzia mahindi ambalo ni zao tunalitegemea sana hapa nchini. Wakulima wengi ukiangalia maeneo kama vile Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, maeneo katika kama kaunti ya Bungoma, Nakuru na hata Narok, sehemu ambazo labda tunaweza kuwategemea katika upanzi wa mahindi, magala makuu ya mahindi hapa nchini. Sasa wakulima baadhi yao wameanza tayari kuangazia kilimo kama vile cha zao kama vile miwa, mambo na parachichi, kitu ambacho tukua tunakiona kwa sana hapo nyuma. Labda hatua hii ya wakulima kubadili labda kutoka kupanda mahindi kuingia katika mimea mingine ina athari gani kwa gala letu la nafaka hapa nchini?
itakuwa vyema kila mkulima apewe nafasi awe na njia mbadala ya kusalisha chakula ama kupata hela. Lakini kama tukisimamia vizuri sehemu ya mahindi, hata ile hektari ambayo ama ekari ambayo bado tunasalisha mahindi inaweza kutoa mahindi ya kutosha. Shida ni moja kwamba atusaidii wakulima wakati ambao unatakika. Unajua mkulima, hata mtu kama mimi ambaye nilisomea kilimo kidogo, ninahitaji kukumbushwa. Marehemu President Reagan alisema wakati mwingine inachukua wengine kutukumbusha yale ambayo tunatilia maanani, kwa maana wakati mwingine tunaweza kusahau. Kwa hiyo extension service inatakiwa kuwepo, ili kama unapanda mahindi unasalisha, inatakiwa usalishe mpaka magunia 35 na ikija chini sana 25. Lakini wakulima wengi hata Trans Nzoia saizi wanasalisha magunia 17 kama wamefanya vizuri, wengine hata 15. Kwa nini? Kwa maana hawapati mbolea wakati unatakiwa. Pili, hawasaidiki katika hali ya kuchangia kupigana vita na kwekwe na wadudu waharibifu. Hayo ndio mambo ambayo inaharibu kilimo katika nchi hii, kiasi kwamba badala sisi kusalisha zaidi ya magunia milioni 40 tunasalisha labda 35, 25. Hiyo inamaanisha tutakuwa kuna sehemu ya ardhi ambayo hatujatumia vyema kusalisha. Ni sawa, miwa ni sawa, lakini wakati mwingine itakuwa vizuri pia tujue kwamba nchi ambayo haijisimamii kichakula ni nchi ambayo inaweza kuumia sana. Hata wale watu wa Europa, sehemu ya kilimo labda inachangia 13% ya uchumi ya nchi, ama 1.3, lakini lazima wanatafuta njia ya kusaidia mkulima asalishe.
Pale kwa kujisimamia na uzalishaji wa chakula. Kenya ni nchi ambayo tuna mashamba makubwa, mashamba yana rutuba ya kutosha, lakini inashangaza kwamba miaka 60 baadaye bado tunaweza kuagiza mahindi na chakula kutoka nje. Na ukiangalia ile hali mataifa kama vile Israeli, haya ni mataifa ambayo yako kwenye jangwa, lakini utakuta kwamba hakuna wakati wote utasikia kwamba wana njaa, wanazalisha chakula cha kutosha, tunapata chakula kutoka kule. Tatizo liko wapi haswa, na tunaweza kurekebisha vipi swala hili la kutegemea uagizaji wa chakula kutoka nje na tuna mashamba ambayo yana rutuba ya kutosha?
Shida ni uongozi. Shida ya kwanza uongozi, ya pili uongozi, ya tatu ni uongozi. Kama viongozi ambao wako katika madaraka hawatakuwa wafanya biashara, ukiuliza nani ndio ameagiza hii mahindi ambayo inakuja sasa, na ufanye vizuri kabisa, utaona labda kuna viongozi ambao katika serikali ama marafiki wao ndio wameagiza chakula. Shida moja, wakati nilikuwa waziri wa kilimo, nikapata rais anataka nimweleze kama kuna chakula tosha hapa kwetu. Baadaye nikamweleza Mheshimiwa Rais, ni vyombo vya habari ambao wanaandika hayo, lakini mimi mwenyewe ninajua kwamba kuna chakula ya kutosha. Akaniambia hata kama sisi tungekuwa na hayo makaratasi tungeandika hivyo. Nikajua rais amepewa taarifa ambayo lazima nijitayarishe. Nikamweleza nitarudi Jumatatu nije nikueleze vipi tutafanya, because alikuwa ananiambia tuagize mahindi milioni 4, lakini ilikuwa ni wafanya biashara wameweka hiyo propaganda, na hata vyombo vyetu taasisi kama ya NIS wanatoa jambo kama hilo kwamba kuna shida ya chakula nchini. Wakati huo hata ukikumbuka kuna magazeti walikuwa wananipiga vita, anasema Kirwa anazungumza, lakini nchi baada ya miezi 2 itakuwa haina chakula. Mwishowe ikabidi tunitafute mbinu ya kuhakikisha kwamba sijapoteza imani ya rais, lakini hatuwezi kuingiza mahindi wakati wakulima wetu tunatarajia mahindi yao itafika katika soko. Ilikuwa mwezi wa 8 na mwezi wa 11 mahindi kutoka Trans Nzoia na kwingine inaingia katika soko. So hili ni jambo ambalo ningependa kusema ni shida ya uongozi. Kama viongozi watakuwa wafanya biashara, Afrika nzima itakuwa na shida. Kwa maana ukiwa kiongozi lazima ujinyime. That's why you become a public servant.
Lakini hata ukisema hivyo mheshimiwa kwamba labda wale ambao wameagiza mahindi kwa sababu ni wafanye biashara mambo kama yale, tutakaa bila chakula, na ilhali kuna mahali Wakenya wanaweza kupata mahindi, na labda kule kuagizwa kwa mahindi pia huenda ukapunguza bei ya unga, jambo ambalo Wakenya wanalia sana unga.
Lakini kama utakuwa unaagiza mahindi ndio punguze bei ya unga, itakuwa ni shida. Unajua saa hii ukitoa mahindi Zambia kwa mfano, vile waziri wa kilimo alikuwa amesema, ngawaje baadaye hata waziri huko Zambia akasema hakuna mahindi ya kutosha huko Zambia. Sijui waziri nani alikuwa amempa hiyo taarifa. Kutoka Zambia uwe katika Tasara reli mpaka Dar es Salaam, alafu lete mpaka Mombasa. Hiyo gharama ya usafiri peke yake inachukua sehemu 50% ya bei ya mahindi. Kwa hiyo uko katika hali nzuri kama unasalisha mahindi yako hapa. Unajua wale ambao wana bahati ni labda wale wameagiza kutoka Brazil. Kwa maana unajua ukiwa Brazil wanaweka mahindi yao katika gala ambayo iko katika meli. So inasunguka kitafuta mahali gani kuna soko ya mahindi. Kwa hiyo inaweza kuwa nafuu kwa maana tayari iko katika meli, labda iko South Africa, labda iko Mombasa. Kwa hiyo hali ya usafiri itakuwa gharama ndogo. Lakini kama utategemea hivyo, na iwe kama wakati huu ambao katika dunia nzima mahindi ina shida. Hao wenzetu wa Kenya Kwanza walikuwa wanasema mambo ya nje haiwezi kutuhusisha hapa kwetu. Ukraine ni nchi ya pili kwa wingi ya kusalisha chakula, hasa mahindi, na Ukraine ina shida na Russia. Kwa hiyo kama number 2 katika ulimwengu huu ina shida, inamaanisha sehemu ya mahindi ambayo labda ingetoka huku iende kwingine inatolewa katika soko, kwa maana wana nafasi ya kusalisha. Hii inamaanisha nini? Kwamba bei ya mahindi itaenda juu kwa ile principle ya supply and demand. Kama supply iko chini na demand iko juu, bei lazima iende juu ndio iwasilishe mambo katika hali ya kusikika.
Msikilizaji na mtazamaji wa KBC Channel 1, unaweza endelea kufuatilia mjadala huu katika mitandao yetu ya kijamii, na kama una swali na kama wewe ni mkulima, basi tunaye aliyekuwa waziri wa kilimo kwa wakati mmoja, Kipruto Arap Kiro, tukiangazia masuala ya kilimo endelevu. Kama una swali @Doramanya Radio Taifa FM @KBC Channel 1 #Zinga #GMK, hebu tuweze kupata kujua kauli zako ni zipi, na kama una swali lolote ambalo ungependa liweze kuangaziwa asubuhi hii. Bwana Kirwa, tuangazie masuala ya mbegu. Tumegusia mbolea, muda unasonga ndio. Tumegusia mbolea, tayari serikali ni kama inaleta suluhu kwa wakulima kwa ile mbolea ya ruzuku. Lakini kuna swala hili la mbegu. Kwa wakati mmoja wakulima walikuwa wanalia pia kwamba kuna hii sheria kwamba sasa huwezi kutumia mbegu tu ya kawaida, unahitaji mbegu maalum. Na kulikuwa na mashamba ya ADC yaliyokuwa yakitoa mbegu za hali ya juu kwa wakulima. Sijui kama haya mashamba bado yanafanya vile, manake naamini kama mbegu itakuwa nzuri pia nataraji kwamba mazao yatakuwa mazuri.
Kwanza nilitoa shukrani kwa serikali kuchangia mbolea rusuku, lakini ujue hiyo ni sehemu ndogo ya kuchangia katika hali ya kusalisha mahindi. Mahindi katika wilaya ya Trans Nzoia kwa ekari moja utahitaji 40,000. Mbolea rusuku inauzwa shilingi 3,500 kwa wale watapata. Hii inamaanisha wamepea mkulima nafuu ya shilingi 3,000. 3,000 ukiangalia, ukifanya hesabu yako vizuri, ni karibu 10% ya gharama ya kusalisha mahindi katika Trans Nzoia. Hii inamaanisha nini? Inamaanisha kama utasaidia tu kutoa mbolea rusuku bila kuchangia yale mengine, kwa mfano mbegu ambayo ni nafuu kutoka kwa Kenya Seed Company kupitia na shirika lolote ile, pia dawa ya kunyunyizia shamba ili kupigana vita na kwekwe na wadudu waharibifu. Jambo la 3, kuhakikisha huyu mkulima akitoa mahindi yake katika shamba, kuna sehemu ambayo inaweza kuhifadhiwa kwa muda mrefu ili isiharibike baada ya kuvuna. Kwa maana ukiweka mahindi yangu katika gala ya kitaifa ama gala ya shirika la nafaka, inamaanisha hiyo mahindi nikitaka kuuza naweza kuja nikupe risiti kwamba ulikuwa umehifadhi mahindi yangu magunia 1,000 na utanirudishia mahindi na kuchukua gharama ya kuhifadhi. Hayo ndio mambo muhimu ambayo sisi kama Wakenya lazima tuchangie. Lakini kuzungumzia mbolea peke yake, hiyo ni siasa. Haiwezi kuchangia kikamilifu. Itasaidia mtu kuingiza mbegu kwa mchanga na pia mbolea na mahindi ianze kumea, lakini ukweli ni kwamba utakuwa umemsaidia huyo mkulima apate nafasi nzuri. Jambo la pili, shirika la ADC bado inamsaidia ekari 40,000 katika kaunti ya Trans Nzoia, na kwingine bado wanasaidia ekari 1,800,000 hasa katika sehemu ya Galana, katika sehemu ya Laikipia na kokote pale nchini. Lakini shirika hilo haijapata usaidizi wa kutosha kwa muda uliopita, na natarajia labda serikali wataona umuhimu ya kusaidia hiyo shirika kupata njia ya kusalisha mbegu, na pia wakishirikiana na Kenya Seed Company hiyo mbegu iwasilishwe katika soko.
Mwelekezi wangu ananieleza kwamba tunafaa kuchukua simu kutoka kwa wasikilizaji, lakini kwa dakika moja tu, kwa sababu umetaja Galana. Na kulikuwa na mradi wa Galana Kulalu ambao ulikuwa unanuiwa kutoa kielelezo katika nchi, japo katika masuala ya chakula ukatokea changamoto, japo rais akatangaza tena kwamba ule mradi utaweza kufufuliwa kwa sababu ya upanzi wa mahindi. Tunaweza kujifunza yapi kama taifa kutokana na kile ambacho kilitokea na masuala ya Galana, na yapo matumaini kwamba pia wakati huu labda kidogo mambo yatakuwa tofauti?
Kama tutapiga vita ufisadi katika mawazo yetu na katika mazungumzo, na kuhakikisha kwamba tunakidhi mahitaji ya wananchi kwa njia kamilifu, lazima tupige vita ufisadi. Galana Kulalu, yes, labda ilikuwa na shida ya maji na nini, lakini wale ambao walikuwa wanahusika wangechukua wangeingia katika library wasome ni vipi ilifanyika wakati uliopita. Nakumbuka wakati huo waziri alikuwa ni Eugene Wamalwa ambaye ni rafiki yangu, na nikamweleza kwamba kuna taarifa ambayo imeandikwa kuhusu Galana, na haya ndio mambo lazima tuwekelee maanani ndio tupate nafasi ya kusalisha. Lakini tukirudi huko tu kwa maana tumetoa mwongozo mpya bila mpango, tutarudi pale pale, asara.
Nafikiri huu ni mjadala ambao unahitaji muda zaidi, lakini kwa sasa tuende upande wa pili wa studio. Nitaomba kama unaweza kutumia hivi vifaa tukasikia wananchi wanasemaje katika studio zetu. Mwenzangu Joyce Kahiga, iwapo unanipata, wananchi wanasemaje? Simu kama 3 hivi.
Bila shaka nakupata mwenzangu Dora Manya ukiwa upande wa pili, na hivyo
Joyce, iwapo unanipata?
Bila shaka nakupata mwenzangu Dora Manya ukiwa upande wa pili, na hivyo tuweze kupata.
Tutakuwa tunaenda kwake Joyce katika mdosi kwa mrefu, lakini pia tuangalie katika mitandao ya kijamii. Kuna mmoja hapa ananiambia, Dora, mimi ni Robert kutoka Bungoma. Hii mbolea ya serikali, mbona watu wengi wanasema kwamba sio nzuri? Sijui unasemaje kuhusu hilo?
Ningependa kusema hivi, kuna kitu ambao inaitwa uzoefu. Kama umezoea kutumia sabuni fulani na upate hiyo sabuni haiko katika duka, itakusumbua kidogo. Lakini pia serikali wakati walikuwa wanaagiza mbolea hiyo, wangehakikisha wanaagiza ile mbolea ambayo wakulima wenyewe wako sawa. Kwa hiyo mwenzetu Robert kutoka Bungoma, nakubaliana nawe kwamba labda kuna matatizo madogo, lakini sio matatizo ya kufanya sisi kuona kama serikali haijasaidia. Iliyoko labda serikali wafikishe ile inaitwa mbolea ya top dressing mapema, ili mtu ambaye amepanda na 23 apate kutumia hiyo mbolea ya top dressing mapema, ili mahindi isipate isitofike kutokana na ukosefu wa madini fulani.
Mwelekezi wangu, bado tunachukua simu. Joyce, wapo unanipata?
Nakupata vizuri sana mwenzangu Dora Manya.
Tunapokea simu 2-3 tusikie wananchi, na hasa ningependa tusikie kauli za wakulima. Tashukuru sana.
Vizuri sana, nakupata vizuri sana Dora Manya upande wa pili, na moja kwa moja tuelekee kwa wasikilizaji. Msikilizaji, ni fursa yako wewe sasa uweze kupata kusikiza upande wa pili maswali na kumuuliza aliyekuwa waziri,
tukisubiri kumpata Joyce Kahiga upande wa pili.
Naam, 0700
jumbe wetu hapa. Wakati tunaangazia haya, labda kidogo tu, maana muda pia unazidi kusonga, tuangazie pia maazimio ya Maputo ambayo yanapendekeza kwamba mataifa ya Afrika kutenga 10% ya bajeti kwa kilimo. Kwa mfano mabunge yetu ya Senate na la kitaifa inaweza kutueleza nafaa kufanya nini ili kuimarisha kilimo, hasa katika masuala ya bajeti ikizingatiwa.
Ujambo sana.
Unajua bajeti ni serikali kuu.
Naam, nazungumza naye nani?
Inapangia kwanza kuhakikisha kwamba katika makadirio ambao kulingana na mapato ili watapata kutoka kwa raia, yafaa wao wenyewe wajue ni sehemu gani ambayo inatakiwa ipewe nafasi kipao mbele. Lakini kama serikali kuu haitahusisha wafanyakazi wake, na ukijua kwamba wakati huu serikali iliyopo ni kama imeshika bunge nini mateka, kwa maana hakuna jambo ambalo inaweza kutoka bunge ambayo serikali haijakubali. Unajua kila wakati tangu tupate uhuru, wakati mwingine labda executive ndio inakuwa na nguvu kidogo, wakati mwingine koti, kama wakati wa uhuru koti ilikuwa inapiga serikali sana. Lakini wakati wa Kibaki ni kama bunge ilikuwa na nguvu kuliko hata serikali yenyewe. Wakati huu naona bunge sasa imeshikwa mateka. Sioni kama kuna jambo kipe itatoka bunge.
Mbona unasema imeshikwa mateka? Imeshikwa
mateka kwa maana wakati tulifanya uchaguzi, sisi katika upande wa Azimio tulikuwa na wabunge 177. Lakini saa hizi hao wabunge wamechukuliwa zaidi ya 40. Na wale hata hawajachukuliwa wamewekwa katika hali ambayo hawezi kusimamia hoja, kiasi kwamba ionekane bunge imechukua msimamo ambayo labda serikali ipembeleze bunge. Unajua serikali haitakiwi kuwa eti bunge anaelewa yale serikali anafanya. Otherwise independence ya institutions of government imekuwa compromised. Executive inatakiwa kujisimamia, bunge ijisimamie, na judiciary isaidie kutoa maamuzi kwa wale wote ambao labda wako katika itilafu fulani. Lakini wakati huu bunge tulio nao wakati huu, wawe watu wa Azimio ama watu wa upande wa Kenya Kwanza, wabunge ni kama wamesahau nafasi yao ya kusimamia raia. Kwa maana katika article 1 na article 94 wao ndio wanatakiwa kutusaidia kwa niaba ya raia kuhakikisha kwamba serikali kuu ama executive inafanya kazi vilivyo. Lakini wakati ni shida.
Kwa sababu ya muda ambao unasonga, tuangalie tukimalizia tu. Shida kubwa pia imekuwa ni tatizo la maji. Na tumesema mataifa kama vile Israeli ni mataifa ambayo yako kwenye jangwa. Labda kwao wamepata suluhu katika mambo ya maji, kufanya kilimo endelevu. Mvua inanyesha kwa sasa tena nyingi sana katika sehemu mbalimbali hapa nchini. Kenya inaweza kufanyaje na kujifunza nini kutoka mataifa mengine, japo katika masuala ya kuvuna yale maji, ili kwamba hata wakati ambapo kuna ukame ama kuna upungufu wa mvua kwamba yale maji yanaweza kutumika?
Kuna hatua 3 yafaa sisi kama Wakenya tuchukue. Kwanza ni kuendeleza vile serikali imesema, na nakubaliana na serikali, upanzi wa miti. Na si upanzi wa miti peke yake, lazima ukipanda miti uhakikishe umeiguza hiyo mti mpaka iwe mti ipate kukomaa. Hili isaidie katika hali ya kuleta mazingira mema. Jambo la pili, pia tusaidie kwa kuhakikisha utumishi wa ardhi. Ile wanaita kwa kimombo land use. Land use katika Kenya imeharibika, imesoroteka, kwamba katika sehemu ya mito watu wanalima mpaka hata mto yenyewe mito inaanza kupotea, kwa maana hakuna ile chemichemi ambayo ilikuwa inasaidia kwa kuwa na sehemu ya mto ambayo uwezi kufikisha hali ya kulima. Hiyo ndio jambo la pili ambayo inatakiwa serikali itilie maanane, ihakikishe katika kila sehemu ya mito, nafikiri ni mita ni futi 30 kwa upande wote wa mto, pasiwe na uharibifu wa mti. Jambo la 3 ni kuendeleza what we call roof harvesting, ya maji, ili maji isiwe tu ikinyesha inaenda mpaka mtoni. Wakulima wasaidike, na pia wakulima wahamasishwe kuhakikisha wale ambao wana uwezo wafanye roof harvesting. Wengine katika upande wa Kitui na kwingine kuna ingine inaitwa rock harvesting, ambayo mvua ikinyesha unatengeneza sehemu katika jiwe hilo ambao unaweza kuhifadhi maji kwa muda. La mwisho ambayo ni muhimu ni kwamba tujaribu turudie mambo ya soil conservation. Terraces hakuna. Wakati huu katika bara la Afrika nzima tunapoteza futi 3 ya mchanga. Futi 3 ya mchanga. Futi 3 ya mchanga katika Afrika inaenda katika mito na pia katika sehemu ya maji. Hii inamaanisha hiyo mito itaenda kupotea na mchanga yenye rutuba itachukuliwa kila mwaka futi 3. Mwenyezi Mungu tu aturehemu, kwa maana tumeanza kuharibu mali ambayo alituachia.
Naam, kwa sababu ya muda nataka tutamatishe pale, lakini sitamaliza bila sekunde chache kutoka kwako tu. Kuna baadhi ya wale wakulima ambao pia wamekuwa kilalama kwamba hii exercise ya kusajiliwa ndio akaweze kupata mbolea wamekuwa na changamoto. Mwingine anasema ndio nimesajiliwa, ile transport natumia kuendea ile tena mbolea kitambo nifike nyumbani tena. Labda serikali kwenda mbele inaweza kuboresha vipi huo mfumo wa kusajili wakulima katika kupata mbolea?
Ni kutumia mbinu ya kuhakikisha kwamba mbolea imesambazwa katika sehemu ambayo iko karibu na mkulima. Pili, warudishe chini mambo ya ufisadi. Unajua hata hizi pesa ambazo umesema mmetumia sasa kuleta mbolea, kuna sehemu ambayo imefanyika huko Uasin Gishu na rais mwenyewe anatoka huko, ambao milioni 300 imeenda kwa akaunti ya mtu bila njia ambayo tunaweza kusema inaenda kusaidia wakulima. Na pia wahakikishe kwamba ile mbolea inaletwa ni ile mbolea wakulima wanaipenda. Wasilete tu mbolea ili kuhakikisha kwamba imesemekana na imefanywa. La mwisho ni kuuliza serikali kama kweli wamesajili wakulima milioni 5 na wamempa kila mkulima mfuko moja ya mbolea ya kilo 50. Inamaanisha mwisho wa mwaka huu tutakuwa na magunia milioni 100, ambao nafikiri haya takwimu labda rais amedanganywa ama rais mwenyewe anatudanganya. Kwa maana si rahisi kusema kwamba kuna milioni 6 ya mbolea kilo 50 ambayo imeenda kwa wakulima. Hiyo inamaanisha tutakuwa na mahindi milioni 100. Kwa hiyo tutakuwa tunawasilisha katika soko ya nchi mahindi hayo. Tuongoje mwisho wa mwaka, Mungu akituweka tutasikia hayo.
Asante. Umemaliza vizuri kabisa. Wakati mwingine tutakuita, maana masuala haya ya kilimo endelevu ni swala ambalo tunafaa kulizungumzia tena kwa sana. Maana wanasema wenyewe kwa Kiingereza kwamba nation that cannot feed itself can never be free. Taifa ambalo haliwezi kujilisha haliwezi likawa huru.
You can say that again.
Nisema kwa Kiingereza ama Kiswahili?
Vile umesema.
Kwamba taifa ambalo haliwezi kujilisha haliwezi kuwa huru.
Asante.
Kwa hivyo ipo haja ya kuendelea na kilimo endelevu.
Na niko tayari kurudi hapa.
Asante.
Nashukuru.
Shukrani sana kwa mtazamaji wa KBC Channel 1 na vile msikilizaji wa KBC Radio Taifa. Samahani tungeweza kushika simu zenu, lakini usijali, mjadala unaendelea. Na ningependa kusema shukrani sana kwa kaimu mkurugenzi wa shirika la utangazaji la KBC Bwana Samuel Maina, na vile meneja msimamizi wa kitengo cha redio Bi Mary Daraja, msimamizi wa kitengo hiki cha kuandaa shughuli nzima hii Bwana Martin Kingasia, na mtayarishi mkuu Bi Lucy Wahome akishirikiana na Bwana Geoffrey Onditi, na vile wapiga picha wangu na waelekezi wote upande wa pili. Shukrani sana kutenga muda kufanikisha makala haya, na kwako wewe msikilizaji na mtazamaji tunasema heko, wacha tuendelee kulima, manake tunahitaji chakula. Endelea kusikiliza Radio Taifa na vile kutazama KBC Channel 1 kwa vipindi vyetu ambavyo vimesalia. Siku zote niite Dora Manya.
Shukrani.
abantu ba Mintombu yamole.
Your favorite Ekegusi station, Minto FM, is now at your doorstep. Enjoy the hottest Kisi music, informative and entertaining shows, and reliable news only on Minto FM. Tune in to Minto FM on 91.7 FM in Nyamira, Kisi, and its environs.
Minto FM,
Hey, who is that?
Did he fall? Mr. Bai! Wake up, Mr. Bai!
Hey, help him sit up. Help him sit up.
Where are you going?
Oh, Liam, I have to go to the hospital.
To see Harvey, right? I'll give you a ride.
It's
Come
fine,
on.
I can go myself.
We're losers in a game of love, right?
I don't know whether I am or not now.
But you treated me like your feelings garbage can.
She lost her son?
The boy just disappeared while she was wounded, and they left her for dead.
Why don't you escape? Go away from here. Away from Milena and from everything that harms you. If you don't do it now, my dear.
Oh, Fermina.
Now, I didn't even have to ask for your hand because you were practically given to me.
I just need your help, Professor. I need you to help me get over what I am feeling.
Those who are talking. Caicedo and Jairo.
I should have known.
Exactly 6 minutes past the top of the hour, right in time for our last conversation this Tuesday morning. We never gaze on matters health at this hour, just looking at spinal cord injury and how this might cause a ripple effect when you talk about anxiety. Just how are these two tied together? This is what forms center of our discussion for the next 50 minutes. I am holding court with Nancy Kabiru, who is a psychologist and definitely helping us unpack this and so much more. Nancy, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you so much.
We just start from the discussion itself.
Yeah.
Spinal injury. You know, oftentimes when we hear about spinal injury, we're always relating it to accident, that this is a condition that you'll get in the event of an accident. Is that the only way you'll get it? This kind of condition?
Most of the time, we would call it about 80-90%. It would be as a result of trauma.
80-90% as a result of
trauma.
Okay.
So trauma meaning there was an impact on your spine. It could also result out of a bad sitting position, bad sleeping position. If you're involved in exercising and you're lifting heavy materials or you're carrying heavy goods. So those are some of the factors that could lead to a spinal cord injury, but the degree varies.
Okay.
So now, being a psychologist, we look at the highest degree of an injury and how it has affected or changed your life.
Okay. Just before you continue, Nancy, allow me to just backtrace a bit so that we can create context into this discussion. We are saying that a spinal cord injury just does not emanate from accidents as how most of us would think and believe, that there are other factors that will lead to this. So even just a bad sitting position could actually make you have a spinal cord injury.
Exactly.
And this is long-term?
Yes. It can be long term because you see the spine has different discs.
Okay.
So if the disc dislocate and you're not able to go maybe to a chiropractor or to a back specialist where you get the right support, then you will live with a long life injury.
Wait,
so
just because you start to be buyer. That's scary,
I want you to think about the women who have been involved in going to the market and carrying heavy goods. Over time, their ability to function and walk straight and sleep well without complaining of backaches builds up. I want you to think of that Mjengo guy who's used to carrying bags of cement and stones daily, and they start complaining of a small back problem. Okay, and now imagine the economic situation of these people. They don't have the best mattresses or best seats that they would be orthopedic. So the injury continues to propagate. So it's like a wound that you don't nurse, it builds up.
So then, you know, this actually has just opened my mind up to think, because I am from that class that would actually think that, because, you know, spinal cord injuries, it's a lifetime. Almost nothing can be done to correct. You just learn to live with it over time. And you're here telling us that even just sitting inappropriately, as well as sleeping inappropriately, or depending on the kind of work that you do, which would have an impact to you, an impact on you, I should say, could actually make you get this long life illness.
You could, yes. And that is why it is a very sensitive bit in your body, because it serves to pass on a lot of messages from your body to your mind. So whenever it is in pain, the mind registers it in a sense that there is already a crisis within the body.
There's something wrong.
Yes, there's something wrong.
Except just passing of messages. So then we understand how important this part of the body is. Except just that transmission of messages. Why else is this significant?
It helps you to have your balance. I mean, it holds everything together.
Balance as well as messages.
Exactly.
And messaging in between different parts of the body. So then tell me, you start feeling and sensing this, I'd call them minute, minimal for our starters, kind of pain. Because I mean, if you're doing that kind, this is your actually economic activity, whether it's you're carrying the heavy load of, could be vegetables, whatever kind of business that is, or you're in that construction site, Mjengo, and that is actually what you need to be doing daily. Then you start feeling the small minimal pains and you're saying, it's just because of the cement I carried today and all that. What is the first step that someone needs to take? Also just basing this on your practice.
Any form of pain is not normal pain. It should not be normal.
Much as it might look, it's just because of what I did today.
Exactly. So if that pain continues for more than a day, you need to seek medical attention. And a lot of people need to stop self-medicating, taking that painkiller and feeling like, oh, I can sleep better today.
I was about to go there. You just take that karob and you rub it and say, today is good enough, so let's continue pushing
Please
with
go
life.
to a specialist, all right? And there are different levels of specialists. Because what you overlook will continue to build a crisis within your body and within your mental space.
I hear you. You've said there's the different level of specialists, and you'll tell us a bit more about what each specialist perhaps does and what that categorizes. But before we get there, you had said that the degree varies. Of course, you details about the factors. So when you say that the degree varies, is based on what? What accounts for that?
The cause of the injury.
Okay. If it's an accident, it's something different.
That's trauma. It's abrupt. It could rupture you. It could dislocate a lot of things. But if it is happening over time, it is slow. So that is what I meant by that.
But the degree varies. So that also is very dependent on what is the factor that is causing this condition.
Exactly.
All right, so then tell me about the level of specialists, because I also want to believe that this one would vary.
Well, yes, but I'm not an expert in the medical field, so I'll talk of what I know. There are spinal specialists, there are chiropractors, and there are reflexologists. Now, whenever you have a spinal injury, other than the medical provision given in the hospital, they will take you for rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is where you're involved in exercising to try and normalize and strengthen your other parts of the body so that all of them work together to help give you some sort of stability. If you go to hospitals that have those rehabilitation centers, you'll find somebody walking out of a wheelchair and onto those walking rails, and because they give them support, they are able to allow circulation with the body so that they can even be able to pass the bowel or urine, because when you're seated stationary, most of the people with spinal injuries will be seated on a chair. They can't be able to move maybe their lower bottom limbs. So those exercises help to exhaust or put out what the body needs to put so that they can function better.
So then when it comes to the spinal cord, let me not just call it an injury first of all. Does it mean that anytime you're seeking the services or the attention of these 3 levels of medical practitioners, yes, you did say you're not one of them, which is very much okay, totally understand it, Nancy, but then anytime you're seeking their services, should it just be as a result of something that happened to you, either an injury or based on what you're doing in terms of work, or just any time you can actually get a checkup?
Whenever you go for any checkup, the general doctor will give you direction on the right specialist to see for the challenge you're going through. It's the same thing I tell somebody: if you have a problem with your sight, you wouldn't go to see a gynecologist for that. You need to see the right specialist for that. Maybe your gynecologist can tell you, go see an eye specialist, or your eye specialist can tell you, go see a gynecologist. So the best place to start, unless it is an already diagnosed condition, is with a general practitioner.
The general practitioner. So then that means that it's only in the event of an injury that's when you'll actually see this practitioner.
In the event of discomfort.
Discomfort, not an injury.
Yes,
so if you're just feeling like I'm okay, I don't feel any pains, I don't need to see.
You don't need to because you're functioning. You can bend, you can move, you can dance, you can,
I hear you. What are the ripple effects of this injury?
Now, let's look at somebody who has a high degree of the injury.
So you're saying that this perhaps is an accident?
It's an accident, So what would, when you look at them, a lot changes. Their physical relationships will change, and the demands in their life will change. And they have the psychological beat also changing, Now, if we step back to the spine being the center that sends all bodily responses to the mind or to the brain, so if you're in pain, there is an overload of pain response within the brain. So psychologically the person is destabilized, and you find them going through a lot of people will go through depression, and they will be grieving. They will grieve what has changed in their
body,
their function, and even in their body, because you've lost maybe your ability to walk. So they'll grieve that, and even the state, because now they change from an abled person to a disabled person. And that process of grieving has an aspect of you will go through denial. You are trying to fight the fact that you're struggling with it, and you're hoping that you will be able to get back to normal functioning. So there are a lot of people who will be stuck in that phase, and they will get helpless because the earlier interventions have not started at the right time.
So you also need early intervention.
You need early intervention. If you're told, if you're told, go for rehabilitation. Ensure that you mobilize the right resources for you to go for rehabilitation. The longer you take, the more you start affecting other functions within your body. Now, one injury can cause one to start developing even diabetes, hypertension, other conditions that can come out of being inactive. So I'm talking about now psychological psychologically. You're going through depression because you're experiencing grief. You're going through denial. Then you could
just hold it there before we get to that aspect of psychology and the ripple effect in that regard, the depression, the multiple effects it has, even in terms of conditions that you'll get, like you mentioned, diabetes. Again, allow me to also backtrace a bit, and perhaps maybe you can tell us this spinal cord injury, are there types of it, or just an injury is an injury?
No, they would say degree. The medics will say the degree. The same way you have, like if it is a burn, there is a first degree, second degree, third degree. So that one I would like
to just leave it as such.
Yes, for the professional.
Okay, all right.
Because they know the operating terms and they would be able to better explain it.
All right, I hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so then let's come to this ripple effect. You are telling me about depression, and I just want us to touch bit by bit as we elucidate further, because then this could be one condition, depending on whatever it is that led, and one would say, I mean, it's just your spine that broke. Yes, I understand it's very important, but why are you getting all these other conditions surrounding? Why do you even get anxiety? Why do you feel like you want to commit suicide? Why are you getting depression? But it's actually coming out of this.
Yes.
So let's start with the depression bit of it.
All right. So I was explaining that somebody will go through a feeling of loss because there are changes. This loss is similar to what you feel. It's an emotional loss, similar to what you feel when you're going through a relationship challenge. If a relationship ends, if you lose your job, the kind of loss you will feel. You will feel it internally, and it will be probably very hard for people to understand it externally. And a lot of people would downplay it and tell you, you know, you'll get better, you'll get another job. But they don't understand the meaning that that previous engagement had on you. So for somebody who has been disabled, or they've gotten disabled because of a high degree of spinal cord injury, they feel that their life has changed all of a sudden, and they are stuck in the feeling of loss. The loss will bring denial, and that's why I was talking about them not feeling like they can be able to, them feeling like they can go back to the previous position and not accepting that, hey, this is an injury and these are the facts that I'm being told about them. And I probably need to push myself to seek the immediate medical attention so that my life can navigate easier. Okay? So then they will go through depression. Now, depression is when they are having a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, feeling stuck, unmotivated because of the change that is going through, they are going through, okay? And then they might come to acceptance, acceptance of the reality that this is my situation. And with the acceptance, now there will be a build-up of now sense of what do I do? The unknown, how do I function from now? And that is where anxiety comes in. Okay,
this is after you've been depressed, you've been in denial, you're beginning to accept. Now you're actually getting anxious.
You get anxious. You could also start with anxiety, denial, depression, acceptance. So the cycle could take different forms depending on how your predisposition to challenges. When I say that, there are people who, when you're faced with a stressful situation, you will retrieve. When you retrieve, you avoid people. So you go into depression, into a depressive state. And there are people who, when they are faced by a challenge, they will come out and fight it. They will be aggressive. So they go into an anxious state. Okay? So depending on how you normally face life, that will be your automatic response even when you have a spinal cord injury. Now, when somebody is in grief, they are able to make meaning eventually and get out of it. But then there are people who go through loss and grief, and then they still are stuck on depression. So you're going through grief, and your natural response is to be depressive. Now with depression, you have grief and you have depression as an additional condition. With depression, now you will have senses of hopelessness and helplessness, okay, and doom and gloom. Okay, that doom and gloom could be as a result of many other instances that you have had in life that have built up and sort of created neurotic depression.
Okay. So we have another one called neurotic depression.
Yes.
Not this. All right.
Yes.
Just keep on.
So you have neurotic depression, and this becomes your every time you hear you're going to the doctor, you get sad. Every time you feel people are coming to you, you feel like,
and
why
it's actually
now?
for your benefit.
It could
but
be,
you don't see it as
you're
such.
not ready for it at that time. Psychologically, you could want it, but psychologically, you don't have the capacity to deal with the present situation.
What brings that? I know you did touch a bit on depending on how someone deals with life challenges, but I'm just trying to imagine in my head, aside from the fact that you dealing with life challenges, the various other circumstances in your life, depending on how the degree of it, could this also be a contributing factor to it? Because you did say something, and I said it could be for your benefit, like going to see the doctor, people coming to visit you. You don't want to be alone in such kind of a situation. So what else could be leading to, you know?
I will go to how you're raised
as a person, upbringing,
as a child. Okay, did you form healthy attachment? Was it anxious or was it avoidant? Did your caregiver make you feel appreciated and your presence received, or did they make you feel like your presence is a problem? Okay? Because if you felt like your presence was a problem, now when you have an injury, you don't want to be a burden.
So this is what some people will say,
you will avoid. Exactly. You will avoid those situations. You will hate to be seen like you cannot be able to achieve. If you are overpraised and you have a very high life expectation and you feel, oh my God, this has happened and I have to be helped, right? It throws you out of your comfort zone. So why I said they probably don't understand what they are going through is because psychologically they've not fully processed the situation.
So upbringing has such a heavy weight on some of the things that would imbalance our life
later on.
Later on. So when you hear someone say, anytime they're going through challenges, and this could be a very classical example, something has happened, they have a spinal injury, they cannot function as how it was, they cannot walk as how they used to. And they constantly just have to use a wheelchair, and they will say, just let me do it by myself. And you clearly know they cannot do it by themselves. It actually boils down to how this person was raised. So let me just digress a bit and speak to raising of children, because you realize in life anything can happen. And you're not saying that this will happen, but hey, anything can happen. How do you speak to even how parents raise their children on any eventuality of life?
Right. There has to be a balance. In this day and age, there's a lot of information on parenting and parenting style. Okay? So when you're raising a child, you're parenting. Whether it's your child or it's an adopted child, or you're still your child, you're helping somebody raise a child, you're taking up the role of parenting. So are you an authoritative parent? Are you an authoritarian? Are you a let anything go kind of parent? Okay? So the mode or style of raising the child will make the child learn their ways of survival.
And coping.
Coping or survival. So way of survival, there are kids who, when parents come home, they will ignore. They'll be like, oh, you're here. They're not bothered because there's no connection, and that person doesn't make them feel like, hey, I'm your parent, okay? And there are those, when parents come back, the child will cry and cry and cry and cry because there was a void left.
While they were away.
While they were away, and when they were leaving. When they were leaving, they'll leave the child crying, and when they come back, the child, instead of the child being happy, the child will be overwhelmed with emotions. They'll be experiencing anxiety.
What does that tell you? Because, you know, while you're speaking, I'm trying to connect in my head, because again, when you look at some of these issues that we are discussing, for instance, the spinal injury, you'd realize even this is an adult, something has happened to them. Like I said, I'll keep repeating that. They cannot function normally. And anytime people come, they just start crying. When you leave, they start crying. And here you're saying, even for a child, a toddler, could be the same case scenario. When the parent leaves, they are crying.
Overwhelmed. Yes. They are overwhelmed. The cry is a signal that I am overwhelmed. I don't know how to respond to what I'm going through. Especially, there is happy cry, there is sad cry. Let's differentiate.
There's happy, there's sad.
Yes, there are times when,
on circumstance.
like, you know, Doreen, if today you got an award for, you know, being the best,
it's a happy cry.
You will shed tears and you might cry and say, I don't believe this. So that's a happy cry. But when you're in distress, you'll be going through sadness. Yeah. So that sad cry is what we are calling the experience of anxiety now to a child. Okay. Now, to a child who's been raised by an authoritative parent, they will be very rigid. Okay. So they will abide by the rules. They will be formed by those rules. Rigid in the sense that it's only what they are exposed to that goes. There's no flexibility. Okay. So even when they go through life, we'll call them, they'll be the people we refer to as sort of naive. They're productive, but they are stuck that. They respond to things in a naive way.
Actually, Nancy, how do you relate the two? How do you become naive and productive?
You can be productive because you've been taught the need for hard work. So you're committed, you will produce. But then in terms of being exposed and open to life and other view, you're very rigid. Okay. So you hear somebody say, oh, my fellow colleague has turned into substance use because of the being overloaded by work. This person who is rigid will be like, hey, they always behaved badly. They all have a judgment because
there's no room for flexibility.
Yes, they were raised in judgment or in rigidity.
Okay. I hear you. And we are due for a break, Nancy. But clearly there's also quite some more to discuss, because when we come back, I want us to also talk about how do you deal with this. You know, it's good to relate your upbringing. I like the point that you brought forth, that indeed when you look at some of these issues of life, actually does emanate from upbringing. Because there's some who this would happen to them, and the way they deal with it, the fact that they're even the ones who are encouraging you, like, relax, it's already happened, we're just moving on. But there are some who this is now the end of life, and they don't know how to get themselves out of it. So when you're relating this with how someone was raised and how to deal with some of these life challenges, taking cognizance of the fact that spinal injury could be one of them, because I mean, life does happen at times. So when you revert back, I want us to look at how to deal with this, the loss itself, how does community come on board, and how does even your close family, to what extent they play a role in your recovery option, much as things could never go back to how it were. So we look at that when we come back after this break.
All
right, time for us to take that breather, but just as you've heard, there's also plenty more to discuss after this break, so don't go anywhere, stay with us.
Wewe nini mbaya na wewe? Umefanya nini wewe sasa? Angalia kile umefanya. Wewe leta pesa.
Kuna nini? Oh, so alikuwa tu mwenda wazimu anatembea looking around for free labor.
Hapa hizo na lori. Repeat. Hapa hizo na lori. Bia wewe.
Nini? Piga magoti. Panta! Lori! Choke!
Goja exactly 5 minutes. Kama sitakuwa pale exactly 5 minutes enda. That's the maximum time they're going to go serious. Go serious.
After the dust settled on rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are waiting for elected leaders to deliver on their pledges.
Have you used the hustler fund?
When your children sleep hungry, when you can borrow 500 or 1,000 shillings and they have some food on the table.
So the 500 you're giving me now is my purchasing power has literally been diminished comparing to probably even January or December.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
In terms of the amount of money that is being disbursed, the minimum being 500 shillings, how do you scorecard that?
No, that I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
And I can tell you for sure the conversation is just good off air as how it was on air, and we continue with it, still holding court with Nancy Kabiru, who is a psychologist, and we're looking at spinal cord injury and the ripple effect this has on someone, that of course relating with matters of anxiety and depression as well. Nancy, before you took that break, I just now wanted to explore at the different forms or what emanates from this kind of injury. You did talk about neurotic depression. I understand there's also neurotic anxiety, there's neurotic OCD. And so just bit by bit for us to get an understanding of how it's important for you to protect your spine in ways that you can, depending on the work that you do. And if you get an injury based on an accident, then it's important for you to seek attention. So what kind of depression, anxiety, OCDs?
I like that. And maybe I'll go back a bit. Yes. Whenever anyone has an injury, a trauma, or a lifetime condition, you need to pair that up with a medical professional and a mental health practitioner.
You don't think about that.
Yes.
I think that's why we have you here, because someone would ask, that's a spinal cord to psychologist. What is she saying?
Exactly.
But now you're bringing the point home.
Exactly. So because when you pair it that way, they help you to unpack your emotional, cognitive, and physical issues, so that you can live a more functional or productive life.
Yeah, because the doctor will literally just treat you and
for the pain,
and they're done.
And for the physical.
Yeah. What about
the emotional? The way you're interpreting situation, cognitive, those might be left undealt with. And when they are undealt with, that is where now maybe neurotic depression starts to build up, or neurotic anxiety, or neurotic obsessive compulsive. And this is in relation to somebody who has been injured, because we can have those neuroses in other life situations. So when we talk about neurosis, we are looking at any condition that has built up. It does not have physical manifestation, but mostly innate or cognitive or emotional. So it is a spiral effect of small things. So like you have pain here today, you keep it, okay? You get medically treated, by the body registers, the mind registers. Whenever you have pain, this is how we respond to it, okay? Pain on your hand, pain on your finger, pain on your toe. So it's a build up.
And all this would come from this particular injury?
It could come from the injury.
Spinal injury.
Yes. So it's a build-up of different pains. So now when you're talking of depression, it is an unfinished episode of the trigger for your depression. Okay. So a build-up of depressive experience today, a build-up of another depressive experience, another, until now it becomes a neurotic response to depression.
Yes. Now that we call it neurosis, it's a bag of all this.
Exactly. It's a bag of...
I wanted to understand, what is this big word?
Yeah, so it's a bag of so many responses or experiences to depression. Now remember, I told you we respond to the psychological pain when under stress based on how we naturally would respond. So if your natural response to stress is going to depressive mood, then you will have build-up of so many depressive moods, and now it becomes something we call neurotic depression. If your response is to anxiety, you have too many anxious responses, that we will call it neurotic anxiety. Now for somebody who is anxious, they are angry, they're always irritable, angry, and they will make you feel like you're walking on eggshells. So even you, when you're describing them, you will say, oh, that one, she's always anxious. We like to say, akona sukari, you know. their response is very spiked.
Ama anakasirika sana.
Anakasirikanga sana. So there's a build-up of too many of those aggressive emotions that makes this person have the neurosis or the anxiety. And you have now obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Now obsessive compulsive could be you're obsessed, but then you build up so many obsession that it becomes now neurotic. Okay? So it is that rigid view of if it is my need to be taken care of and I don't want to, I keep becoming depressive. So it builds up into that neurosis that we are calling.
I hear you.
But then in a more psychological term, we would say it is the need of the id that are unmet. Okay? To bring it home, I want to just give an example of a child going through bullying in a school setting. So when this child is going through bullying, they will either fight back or withdraw. Okay.
So the two responses.
Yeah, the two responses. So when they fight back, if they are bullied over time, they might respond by killing the bully. So the function or the killing of that person has been caused by the neurotic anxiety this person has experienced. And that's why sometimes we have those unexplained reaction. And you say, what? What did they do? They burnt the house?
We were just talking.
Yes, they burnt the house. They did that because they were overwhelmed. There were so many build-up of those responses. Or somebody could respond to this situation by getting too depressed that they see no meaning or purpose in living. Okay? So then they end up taking their life. Like, we could have talked, you understand? But there have been so many signs, so many things that have built up that they cannot be able to deal with life anymore. You understand?
I hear you.
So yeah.
I feel like it was a class 101 because I feel like I've taken in a lot. But the point is home. The response, a person's or an individual's response to these issues is what will make the whole difference. And as you're explaining the neurotic depression, neurotic anxiety and OCD as one of those things that come about from this kind of injury, then you're understanding just basically how as a person you need to be dealing with these things because well, this is basically a bag of all these emotions not dealt with. So then one would ask, it has already happened to you, you already have the injury, and we'll keep reverting back. Probably nothing will ever change. This is now your new normal, I should say. When you look at some of these things you've discussed, the neurosis, depression, anxiety, and OCD, what are some of those signs that one needs to be looking at so that they could realize, or those around you could realize, there's the injury, yes, but there's a psychological effect to this injury.
So when you're the person, anytime you have an illness or you're in pain, you will need probably more time to sleep and recover. Okay, but if you're oversleeping, if you're sleeping for 16 hours in a day and you're an adult, then
but they will say, I can't even walk. So what do you want me to do?
Yes, you can't walk, but there is need for socialization. And socialization is accommodating your environment so that you just don't live within your headspace. Because if you live within your headspace and don't have human interaction, you start to be hopeless. Okay? So a lot of sleeping, change in appetite, change in weight, complaint in pain. Okay, so those would be things that point to that. Irritability, getting angry, talking of obsessing about death or hoping for death to happen. Okay, all these are pointers. They might sound like it's a slip of the tongue. They didn't mean to say what they are saying.
I was about to ask the same, because some would say then, they're just going through the grief that you said. It's denial. That's why they can't eat, they can't wake up, they're thinking about death. But it could be a pointer.
Yes, it is a pointer. And then also looking at the person they are taking of the medication. Is it as they've been prescribed for? Are they overdosing? Okay, because if you need to take more than the dose required, your doctor needs to approve it. Are they overdosing or are they refusing to take medication? Because there are those who resort to not eating, not taking medication and waiting for death. And then there are those who resort to overdosing, over-consuming. They will even maybe make arrangement to have, what do you call this, alcohol, be brought to them. So they start over-consuming so that they are in a state of, being drunk in order to function.
Okay.
They try to run away from their
The
reality. All these things are pointers, okay? Yeah.
So that means if you're dealing with someone, or this could be a relative, and we'll come to the communities in a short while momentarily, but then this should actually be pointing you to there's something more than this injury itself.
Yes.
All right. So then
there will always be.
Yes, just there
will always be something more to the injury.
Like
we always say, any life-changing event, even getting a child, giving birth, there will be a psychological transition
to it, because something different has happened.
It has happened. So you can imagine an injury, there'll also be a psychological transition. What we want to make sure is that we are able to pick these signs early enough and direct the person towards support so that they can navigate. Because you might want to support as a family member, but you're not a professional. Okay? You might not be able to challenge the person the right way, and they get out of that situation. You might say something thinking that you're supporting, but you end up creating a rift because their interpretation and your interpretation is completely different.
So then what do you do, Nancy? Now that you already got into that part of the family and community, we'll just tie it together. So really, what do you do? Because I feel like I'm conflicted when you say that you'd really want to support, and you could even be saying things that to you, it's okay, something like just relax. It will not change, but it will get better. But the brother, the sister, the husband, the child is feeling like, Sasa, what is this person telling me? Where am I relaxing? Nothing is going to change. So what are you supposed to do in this situation from your practice?
Be accepting of the person. They need to feel...
How do you accept this person? Because by me telling you relax, it's going to be better.
Well, that doesn't make me feel like you've accepted me.
All right.
It makes me feel like you expect me to be relaxed. You understand?
What's wrong with me? I want you to be relaxed and take things easy.
So when you're accepting of someone, you're communicating that I know or I can see what you're going through. I don't understand the extent of pain or psychological distress, but I can see what you're going through. And trust me, even with the changes you're going through, it doesn't change how I respond to you or I view you as a person, okay? I'm here to offer you the support you need. You just need to ask me. When somebody is in crisis, they need to direct you on the kind of help they need. Okay?
It's what they want,
it's
not what
they
you think you want for them.
No, it's what they want. Now, using your judgment, if somebody tells you, okay, bring me alcohol, using your judgment, you know that's not useful. Okay? So then, that one you can refuse. But if they tell you, I would like some fruits, using your judgment, you know those are nutritious and they will be helpful. Okay? Now, you give them time, maybe a week or two, to adjust. If they don't adjust and start accepting certain things, then you can recommend that they be seen by another professional in order for the professional to give you insight and also to give them insight on how it can be easier for you guys to exist together with the changes.
So basically what you're saying is that the words that you put out to this person who now is undergoing this loss, because yes, they're living, but it's never going to be the same again. This is basically you saying that the words you say to them matter a great deal.
They do, because they are vulnerable.
So you just don't say what you think is correct within you, but you say what... But I mean, do you need to be learning this over time? You know, because I don't know. I am thinking, Nancy, this is now the life that even you as a person... Let me take the example of a sister, for example. This is a sister who will constantly be staying in the same house with this brother, and of course the other members of the family, but this is the situation. So do you keep learning over time how to relate to the person who now has been injured, their spine cannot work anymore? Does it need to take the effort of a psychologist, a counselor to even train you as family members how to deal with this person? Just what work goes into this?
Both will apply, because even you as a healthy family member, because you're having somebody who is not healthy, you become incapacitated. It's just not
it
that
also
one
takes
person.
a toll on you completely.
It will also take a toll on you. So your emotional well-being might be so drained that you might need also an external party and not friends to help you build up or come up with strategies to address the current change that has happened. So the family members will become equally sick, maybe not disabled, but they will be equally sick, and they need emotional, psychological support. And that's why in our African context, because we are more communal, any win is a communal win. Any loss is a communal loss. Any sort of grief, it should be a communal grief. So you have to allow people to also come in. But if you feel like your resources in terms of being able to deal with this person are getting depleted, that's when you seek psychological intervention. The psychologist can advise whether it's you who just need the journey or it is the entire family that requires the journey. So they'll be able to assess and tell the intensity of the help that is needed.
That is required.
There are people who are more resilient or they have gone through a series of challenges that they can adopt easier, and there are those who it might be shocking that they experience blockage or stagnation because of that challenge.
I hear you. And also I want us to talk about acceptance now for this person specifically. But before then, I just feel like I have to mention this. That's why we have already said on set, and I'll keep saying it. Anytime we talk about these health matters, we always think that we need the doctor, then, which is very good. But I just now understand why we also need that psychological perspective and mind to these issues. Because, well, we said the doctor will treat you, you'll get better. But when you go home and it takes a toll on you, you don't know how to deal with that mental incapacitation that has occurred to you, whether it's you as a person who's been affected or the entire family or scope. So that's why we are having you on board as a psychologist to discuss things that will look
all right, like, thank you.
You know, medic, so to speak. But then, so this is now the family, that family and what they need to do. Well understood. Not the person. They've had the accident. They've done the work for over 30 years. And it has now taken a toll on them to a point that it has made them incapacitated for life. They can walk no more, for example. They're now confined in a wheelchair. How do you begin the process of accepting? Treatment has already occurred. Maybe your family members are getting the insight of how to deal with you. But you see, at the end of the day, it rests with you. So what do you do?
Right.
What do you do?
I think I'll try to summarize it, but it's a more in-depth journey and hope that it hits home. So acceptance is being able to look at what you can change and what you can't change and what you have at your disposal. Okay? So
what you can change?
What you can't change.
Or what you can't first.
And what you can
what
change.
You can change.
And what you have at your disposal. Okay? So use what you have at your disposal to make the change you would like. Okay? Look at life fulfillment. Life fulfillment is inclusive of, you will call it success. It is inclusive of being able to learn. It is inclusive of being able to perform. What can you be able to perform in that state? All right? If you're not able to drive your car, can you allow somebody else to drive you? Okay? So, or can you change the mechanics of your car so that it accommodates you in your state, right? Because intellectually or cognitively, your mind has not been lessened. So you can continuously be as productive. You can continuously form meaningful relationships. And if you feel your environment is rigid, then you might need to start investing in a more accepting or accommodating environment.
How do you do that?
Yes, there are obviously support groups for people who have gone through traumatic injuries. Could be spine, could be any other form of traumatic injury. So that you can be able to borrow from somebody else who has been able to survive, and you can also impact. Okay,
I hear you.
There is always joy in being affirmed and in being able to tap on hope. All right, so looking at the options that you can continuously have, and your personal view, your self view, your identity, your self-worth. It's a journey you walk on. So that is what I would call building on acceptance. It becomes a continuous journey.
Yeah. And you said something very important, which is actually part of what formed the discussion we had yesterday on self-worth. Because you realize if you really understand the kind of person you are, it is difficult. Ooh, it is.
Yes.
But momentarily, you actually begin to slowly accept. And can we put a time frame to this?
Can we do what?
Put a time frame that, you know, after 10 years, it is the situation, but you would have fully accepted. You would have been good to go as how it was.
Yeah.
Can we put a time frame?
We can't put a time frame because we are continuously growing and learning. But what we can say we are accepting of are our experiences, what has formed us to where we are. There are people who've gone through easy life, all right? Accepting that I have had an easy life, but I don't need to be entitled. And there are those who've gone through struggles, and they need to accept that, yes, I went through rape, I went through trauma, I went through abuse, but it doesn't make how I should respond to the world. I am who I decide, view my abilities, my strengths, my expectations, okay? And I am understanding of my skills. I am built up of that, and I continuously will be a body of change. Now the change needs to be in the positive aspect or growth oriented.
Okay, I hear you. So it's just a slow pace momentarily.
Yes.
We have about 3 to 4 minutes to exit. And before we do that, Nancy, you were telling me about some other conditions that one might get out of the spinal injury. What conditions are these, and just why will this come about?
Right. The other condition other than psychological would be conditions that come out of having a sedentary life. That is high blood pressure or diabetes, or even having wounds, kidonda.
Where exactly? Or just
anywhere? Could be anywhere. Could be makalio. Could be on your back.
Just from a spinal injury, you could get.
When you're sedentary, depending on the comfort of where you're stationed and the friction that is going there and the sweat, you know, a wound can build. You can have a blister that bursts, and then it becomes a wound.
Makes sense.
Yes.
It does.
So all these things can come up, and that is why exercise is important. That is why being able to recognize when your heart rate or you're feeling like you're constricted. Another thing would be development of ulcers because of the medicines you're taking, all right, and maybe you're not eating well, okay, so so on and so forth.
So these are some of those conditions that will come about from a spinal injury. That's why we are saying that medical attention and constant accepting it's going to make it easier for you. So you did say exercises.
Yes.
And I'm beginning to think.
Yes.
Do you have recommendations? Perhaps there's someone who's watching and they have maybe a family member or it's they themselves and they're wondering, okay, you mean I can actually do exercise in this kind of space?
I don't have
specifics.
I don't have specific. My best approach is always having your specialist, the person who was able to diagnose the state of the injury,
the degree
recommend you to have the exercise, because there are some exercise you could do that could arc your back, so you need to have the right one.
Well, that's why this is a multifaceted effort,
exactly,
from different stakeholders. Now your last word to communities. How do you bring communities on board? There was a point where you said that a win based on our African setup and context. A win for you is a win for me, and a win for our community. A loss for you is equally the same. So for the community, how do they come on board to assist someone that this is actually now their new normal? They can't drive anymore if they were used to driving. They can't walk anymore. They can't perhaps function in work environment the way they used to. How do they come on board to assist?
We are all gifted with different resources. There are those who have, the financial backing, so you can support financially the family. You don't need to be told. You obviously know they have a medical expense. So financial backing becomes important. There are those who have resources. Maybe you have big lands and you probably have a big harvest. You can take the resources. There are those who can be able to devote time, and you are present with the family, maybe fellowship with them, and also to the person, affirming them, not going to see and saying, oh my God, look at this, you know, try and not express your own experience of their situation. So just show support and encouragement, and the encouragement should be driven by what the person is saying, okay? So they say, I'll never be able to walk again. To ask them, what does it mean not to work again for you. What more can you be able? What do you think you can be able to do?
Communication.
Oh, wow. What you're saying you can be able to do, you acknowledge it so that they feel the drive, the need to actually push themselves towards that achievement.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Thank you very much, Nancy, for your time. I mean, just also for your valuable inputs into this conversation. Now we know how we can tie some of these medical conditions to psychology and how it really impacts our mental capacity, and how we need all these multifaceted stakeholders when it comes to the well-being of an individual. Asante sana.
Karibu.
I've been speaking to Nancy Kabiru, who is a psychologist. Definitely what has formed center of this discussion for the past 50 minutes is just looking at spinal cord injury, the ripple effect, and how this might end up causing depression, anxiety, and how you as a person as well as a community can be able to deal with all this all together. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately good morning Kenya from me and on behalf of the entire team. Asante sana. Till tomorrow, good morning.
I feel like Africa is not taking its space in the global design industry because I see other big brands manipulating our culture and selling it to us as their own, and it's quite sad. They're giving us second-hand goods instead of us giving them the originals. Why don't we set our own trend instead of absorbing what the world is giving us? That's why I've decided, you know what, I'm going to be original. I'm going to tell an African story through jewelry.
Sosha Ngube-raised Koketso Mpomohlala created her own range of African-inspired statement jewelry that encourages South Africans to support